Chapter 1329. Chiyu clenched his fist as a terrifying energy was brewing within it. Whoosh! Whoosh! The battle soul sword floated above his palm and spun non-stop. Kill! Suddenly, Chiyu roared and the battle soul sword flew out with a "so" sound. It actually turned into 2, then 4, and finally into tens of thousands of battle soul swords that chased after the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates. Immerse and the Yellow Emperor's remaining subordinates had already fled far away and could not see the demons. They thought that they were safe enough. Whoosh! 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 The sound of air breaking came from behind them. It was like a deadly note that was getting closer and closer. Immerse and the rest were so scared that their bodies trembled. They quickly turned around and saw the battle soul sword shining with a dazzling sword light. It had already caught up to them. Dodge! Immerse shouted. He was an expert in the way of the sword and understood how terrifying this attack was. The Yellow Emperor's subordinates acted as if they were facing a great enemy. They took out their treasures and tried to block it. Puff! The War Soul sword cut through iron like it was mud, and the treasures were shattered. They were not a match for the War Soul sword at all. The old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor stared with their eyes wide open, looking at the wound on their chest in disbelief. The wounds were not big and looked like a thin line. However, blood flowed out from this small wound. Bang! 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 The sound of people falling to the ground could be heard. Other than Immerse, the rest of them were dead. This was equivalent to more than half of the Yellow Emperor's subordinates being killed. It could be said that the losses were extremely heavy. Immerse did not have time to be shocked. At the crucial moment, he took out the Ganjiang sword and blocked the attack with a clang. He was like a meteorite from outer space, directly flying out. He only glanced at those subordinates who had fallen to the ground with a loud bang from afar. Then, he didn't dare to linger in the slightest. He didn't even have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth before he fled as fast as he could. Immerse was shocked. He knew that Chiyu's cultivation had far surpassed his. When Chiyu was enraged, blood flowed. He had no way to block it. If he did not escape quickly, the others would end up like him. He could only run for his life and luckily preserve his life. Right now, only by reviving Master can we fight against Chiyu. I have to revive Master as soon as possible. Immerse secretly made up his mind. Chiyu looked at the only figure that escaped, but didn't give chase. Instead, he said disdainfully, "The next time I see you, it will be the day of your death, Immerse." Ancestor. Looking at the wise and mighty Chiyu, the demon race quickly surrounded him. Chiyu looked at them indifferently and said, "From today onwards, I will restore the glory of the Ninely tribe." Where are the demons? The demon race no longer exists. From now on, you will be a member of the Ninely tribe. Chiyu looked at them with burning eyes and said resolutely. The Jiuli tribe was a tribe formed after the Wu tribe absorbed other tribes. It was also the predecessor of the demon tribe. Chiyu returned to his original state, intending to restore the glory of the Ninely tribe. These demons were his bargaining chips. I will change you and make you a true member of the Ninely tribe. Chiyu roared and slowly rose into the air. He was like a god, floating in the air and looking down at the people below. He opened his hands as if he was hugging the air. His 10 fingertips lit up with resplendent light. Ninely tribe, reappear in the world. Chiyu roared and the light on his fingertips grew. In the end, it flew out from his fingertips and fell on the crowd like a heavy downpour. These beams of light silently merged into their foreheads. These people trembled, and gradually, their spirit, chi, and spirit were experiencing tremendous changes. In the end, a ray of light rushed out from their glabella and turned into an ancient symbol. Everyone raised their heads and looked at Chiyu with a different gaze. Master! Everyone shouted in unison. There was no such thing as an ancestor. From today onwards, Chiyu was their master. Chiyu had awakened their Ninely bloodline and made everyone submit to him. However, this method could not be used on the Wu tribe. This was because he could not control the bloodline of the Wu tribe. Only the bloodline of the Nine Li tribe that had grown stronger could be controlled by him. Back then, Qiyu wanted to strengthen the Nine Li tribe, so he used a great divine ability and added a spell into their bloodline. This spell could be passed down in the bloodline and would never lose its effect. When he needed it, as long as he awakened this bloodline, all the Nine Li tribe would have to take revenge on him. No one would question his orders. This required his cultivation to reach a certain level before he could use this divine ability. Previously, his cultivation was not high enough, so he could only rely on his identity as an ancestor to lead these people. Now, he was not satisfied with his identity as an ancestor. He needed greater authority, and that was the Nine Li bloodline. These people were no longer demons. After activating the bloodline of the Nine Li tribe, they had become the true Nine Li tribe. They would only listen to Qiyu's orders. Whether it was a mountain of swords or a sea of flames, they would carry out his orders without hesitation. They would not give him any discount. Qiyu looked at his high-spirited subordinates with satisfaction and said, "Tang Zheng, you went against me and ruined my plan. If I don't kill you, others will think that I, Qiyu, am a pushover. Let's go back to the base camp." Qiyu led his men back to the base camp. From afar, he saw that the base camp was in a mess. His men were either dead or injured. Qiyu flew into a rage. After his subordinates reported in detail, he understood that this was Tang Zheng's doing. Qiyu's eyes were about to spit fire. The others were also filled with righteous indignation. They were eager to try and immediately cut Tang Zheng into 8 pieces. "Everyone, listen to my orders. Heal your injuries and recuperate here. 10 days later, we will flatten the capital and kill Tang Zheng." Qiyu became unbridled and fearless. Hearing this, everyone cheered thunderously. Capital. Tang Zheng had already been back for 2 days. The day before, he had already buried everyone. After that, everyone started to cultivate without stopping. The villa had been further expanded. All the witch clan lived here and were heavily guarded. Not a single fly was let in. Although the losses in this battle were great, the gains were not small. Everyone had been baptized by the flames of war and had a deeper understanding of their own cultivation. Especially the witch clan, they had activated the wild aura, which made their cultivation twice the result with half the effort. Their cultivation was rising rapidly. Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi had experienced an evenly matched battle. They had a more intuitive and profound understanding of the strength of today's experts. Therefore, the two felt a strong sense of urgency and pressure. They silently decided to improve their cultivation. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he was thinking about another thing. Qiyu had escaped. With his understanding of Qiyu, Qiyu would definitely not give up. Qiyu came to attack. Could they stop Qiyu? He didn't know. Tang Zheng did not have an answer. But in fact, he already had a vague answer in the depths of his heart. That was, it was difficult enough. Saint King was already at the second stage of the Mahayana realm. Qiyu could only be higher. Otherwise, he would not be able to suppress the devil army. He still did not know that Saint King was dead. He could not estimate Qiyu's cultivation after he recovered. But if Qiyu came to attack, they would not be able to stop him. What should he do? There were so many people around him. He had to do everything he could to protect them. This was his responsibility. He racked his brains for an entire day. Finally, his attention fell on his inner demon. Inner demons, is there really no way to break the cage set by Qiyu? Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice. The inner demons did not answer directly. Instead, he asked thoughtfully, "What's your plan?" "I'll let you out," Tang Zheng said bluntly. The inner demons were overjoyed. Really? A gentleman's word cannot be taken back. The heart demon's joy didn't last long as it suddenly felt gloomy. It said dejectedly, "But the cage is too strong. I've tried several times, but I haven't succeeded. What method do you have to break through it? Qiyu kept saying that only he could open the cage. What's the secret? Tang Zheng asked curiously. The inner demon was silent for a while before saying, "This old fellow likes to deliberately mystify and deceive people, making it hard to see through him. But this time it's obviously true. Because, I tried so many times, I really can't think of any other way." This was the helplessness of the inner demons. His cultivation was not weaker than Qiyu's, but he was imprisoned in the cage. He had a lot of skills, but it was like his hands and feet were tied. There was nowhere to use them. Do you want to be imprisoned here for the rest of your life? Of course not. The inner demon said without thinking. But what can I do? The cage is too strong. I can't break it at all. If I let you out, how will you repay me? Tang Zheng suddenly asked, his voice breaking the heavens and earth. You'll let me out? The inner demons was shocked. How is that possible? Even I can't break the cage. How can you do it with your little cultivation? Hearing his undisguised distrust, Tang Zheng was not angry. Instead, he was happy. The more the inner demons did not believe him, the more he could use his mentality to gain more bargaining chips. Don't worry about what method I use. I just want to know how you'll repay me. Tang Zheng persistently asked. The inner demons laughed. He did not believe Tang Zheng at all. He said casually, if you really let me out, no matter what you want, I'll agree. Suddenly, he changed the topic. But don't expect me to be like the witch tribe and submit to you wholeheartedly. I, the inner demons, did not submit to either Qiyu or the Yellow Emperor tens of thousands of years ago. After tens of thousands of years have passed, I will not submit to a brat like you. The inner demons was still very cautious. He did not rush to sell himself out. Tang Zheng did not expect the inner demons to submit to him. After all, he had confronted Qiyu and the Yellow Emperor. In the end, he would rather be suppressed than submit to anyone. How could he be willing to submit to him? Tang Zheng did not think so highly of himself. He said calmly, what kind of person do you think I am? What kind of person are you? How can I ask you to submit to me? I don't have such a big appetite. The inner demon said proudly, it's good that you know this. Then what do you want? Chapter 1330. The inner demons laughed wildly and looked at Tang Zheng with interest, saying, you really want to raise this condition? Let me remind you, there is no chance for you to go back on your word. Tang Zheng nodded and said, of course I won't go back on my word. You just need to tell me if you agree or not. Why wouldn't I agree? The inner demons laughed mockingly, it's just a pity that your wishful thinking didn't work out. Your painstaking efforts will go to waste. Tang Zheng was unmoved and said calmly, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, then I agree. Now can you tell me how to help me break the confinement? The inner demons asked lazily, not holding any hope at all. It was just a routine question. Do you still remember Qiyu's heart blood? Tang Zheng asked. Of course I remember. Isn't it in Qiyu's heart? What does that have to do with it? The inner demons asked in confusion. Tang Zheng smiled indifferently, normal people wouldn't think of this because they weren't involved. They didn't feel the power of Qiyu's heart blood and its enormous power. I felt it, so I have the deepest impression and the most right to speak. The inner demons disagreed, you have the most right to speak, but what's the use? Don't tell me that breaking the confinement has something to do with Qiyu's heart blood. The inner demons knew about the existence of Qiyu's heart blood, but they never thought about the connection between Qiyu's heart blood and the confinement. Even Tang Zheng had never thought about this connection. It was a sudden thought. Although he hadn't tested it, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. What if it succeeded? He would treat it as a last resort. Why did he think that Qiyu's heart blood could break the confinement? This was because Qiyu had always said that Qiyu's blood contained a part of his power, which was very important to him. Later on, he had no choice but to leave Tang Zheng's body. A portion of Chi Yu's heart blood's energy fused with Chi Yu's soul and was taken away. However, a portion of Chi Yu's heart blood's energy remained. All this time, Tang Zheng had never touched this part of Chi Yu's heart. Perhaps it was because he was afraid of Chi Yu and thought that the things he left behind might not be 100% safe. Unless he had no other choice, he would not take the risk. However, things were different now. If Chi Yu's blood could really break the cage, then even if it was risky, he would still take the risk. At this critical juncture, a certain amount of wool was worth a try. Since Chi Yu's heart blood contained a portion of Chi Yu's power, then would this portion of power be able to break through the cage? This was what he had guessed on the spot from Chi Yu's solemn attitude and tone. Tang Zheng spoke tirelessly and told them his deduction. The inner demons did not say a word, as if they were shocked by these words. Tang Zheng couldn't help but feel a bit proud. He asked with a smile, "Now you know that I didn't lie to you, right?" The inner demons suddenly froze and said unhappily, "Isn't this called lying? You brat, you're just making fun of me." Tang Zheng helplessly rolled his eyes. "Do you think I'm that bored?" "You are that bored," the inner demons said without hesitation. Chi Yu's heart blood does contain Chi Yu's power, but the confinement was created by Chi Yu using a special ability. It requires a corresponding ability to break through. You're just saying that Chi Yu's heart blood can break through the confinement. Don't you think it's too simple and too childish? In the face of the inner demon's barrage of questions, Tang Zheng did not panic. Instead, he asked with a smile, "Do you trust Chi Yu that much? He's an enemy. Do you not discount his words completely? What can I do if I don't trust him?" The inner demons asked. "In any case, I don't trust Chi Yu that much. Nothing is absolute. There's always a way." Tang Zheng was full of confidence. The inner demons did not know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, he said unhappily, "All right, since you're so confident, then I'll wait and see." Tang Zheng did not say anything else. He calmed his mind and focused all his attention on Chi Yu's heart. He had absorbed Chi Yu's heart blood before, so he was familiar with it. However, this time was different. He did not want to use Chi Yu's heart blood to break through the confinement. He did not want to absorb it for his own use. When he urged his power, Chi Yu's heart beat faster. In a trance, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. Tang Zheng came to a blood-red world, a world that was both familiar and strange. He did not panic. Last time, when the demons activated the Jiuli soul transfer formation, Tang Zheng, Chi Yu, and the inner demon's consciousness had entered this world. This was the world in Chi Yu's heart. Tang Zheng immediately saw a man with a white face and no beard. He looked like a scholar. It was the famous inner demons. This was the inner demon's body. However, the inner demons were imprisoned in a confinement. In this blood-red world, this confinement was particularly different. Traces of light flowed in the confinement. The inner demons had tried to break through many times, but they were all blocked. He was completely exhausted. In the end, he gave up all hope and didn't try any further. The inner demons looked at Tang Zheng and said, "Quickly begin. I also want to see the result." In fact, the inner demons was very conflicted. He hoped that Tang Zheng would succeed, but he judged that it was absolutely impossible. This was a very contradictory matter. Tang Zheng nodded slightly. His hands reached into the void and urged his power. True Qi flowed out from his palms. Whoosh whoosh. The wind blew. A strange wind spread out from his palms and then engulfed the entire blood-red world. This wind quickly flew back from all directions and fell into Tang Zheng's palms. The wind gathered in his palms and a dot of red appeared in his palms. After a while, the wind stopped. A drop of extremely bright blood appeared in his palms. It was sparkling and translucent and rolled in his palms. This was the blood he had extracted from Chi Yu's heart blood and absorbed into his palms. Although the inner demons were also trapped in Chi Yu's heart, they could not do this. This was because Tang Zheng was now the master of Chi Yu's heart. Therefore, he could do this as he pleased. The inner demons stared at Chi-Yu's heart blood. Their usually calm expressions became excited. Tang Zheng's lips curled into a smile. How could he not know the inner demon's thoughts? He pushed his hands forward and Chi-Yu's heart blood rolled out from his palms. Whoosh! Chi-Yu's heart blood flew toward the confinement. The inner demons immediately held their breaths. They were unwilling to look away from Chi-Yu's heart blood. It's close. Chi-Yu's heart blood is close. The inner demons secretly shouted. Tang Zheng also stared at Chi-Yu's heart blood with full concentration. Finally. Pa! Chi-Yu's heart blood was poured into the confinement. The flowing light on the confinement immediately came to life. It was suffused with a myriad of colors and was exceptionally brilliant. However, the heart blood did not fall from the confinement. Instead, it stuck closely to the confinement. Moreover, there seemed to be a force driving it, allowing it to freely move around the confinement. Chapter 1331. Chi-Yu's blood flowed through the confinement, leaving behind a smear of red wherever it passed. When Chi-Yu's blood flowed through the entire confinement, the light of the confinement was completely covered and turned blood red. Step back. Tang Zheng sensed something and reminded them loudly. The inner demons quickly retreated to the middle of the confinement, distancing themselves from the fences on all sides. Bang! With a loud explosion, the confinement exploded. The seemingly indestructible fences were torn apart, turning into blood-red spots of light. Finally, they disappeared. The inner demons looked at this scene in disbelief. He never thought it would be so simple. He had worked so hard and tried so many times, but it was all to no avail. Tang Zheng used a drop of Chi-Yu's blood to break the confinement. The contrast was too strong. It made him feel like he was in a trance, and all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. Tang Zheng's eyebrows also curved into a smile. He never would have thought that he would succeed on his first try. Therefore, it was not that it was impossible, but that he could not think of it. Once he thought of something and followed it, he might be able to reap some benefits. Chi-Yu probably never dreamed that Tang Zheng would think of using Chi-Yu's blood to break the confinement. After all, Chi-Yu's blood was incomparably precious, and every bit used was a little less. Even a drop of Chi-Yu's blood contained endless power. The inner demons raised his foot and took a step forward. There was no movement. He tried to take a few more steps forward and crossed the fences of the original confinement. There was still no reaction. The ecstasy in the inner demon's eyes was like fireworks. They immediately exploded and cheered. It's really a success. The confinement is really gone. It was no wonder that he was so excited. After all, he had been suppressed in that huge bronze coffin for tens of thousands of years and had not seen the light of day. Every minute he lived in that kind of life was not a pleasure, but a torture. Later, he finally escaped from the bronze coffin, but he still did not regain his freedom. He was trapped in Chi-Yu's heart with Chi-Yu. In the end, he was even trapped in a cage by Chi-Yu, which made him even more sullen. He had long wanted to break out of this cage and soar into the sky. But the reality of the situation made him despair. He raised his head and stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes. We did it. Tang Zheng nodded solemnly and said, That's right. It seems that Chi-Yu's words can't be completely trusted. What he said about him being the only one who can break the confinement, it seems that he was just bluffing. The inner demons shook his head and sighed. I'm not bluffing. Your Chi-Yu's blood and sweat is a part of Chi-Yu. That's why you can't leave him if you want to break out of this cage. Tang Zheng shrugged and said indifferently, But now that Chi-Yu's heart is in my body, it's not his anymore. Fine, there's no need to argue about this. The inner demons changed the topic and looked at Tang Zheng with a smile that was not a smile. You're letting me go like this. Don't tell me you're not worried that I'll go back on my words and not abide by our agreement. Moreover, I'll take over your body and take over your body. The moment these words were spoken, the atmosphere immediately changed. An invisible pressure enveloped Tang Zheng's body. But his expression did not change at all. He was calm as if these words had nothing to do with him. Tang Zheng looked straight at the inner demons and asked, "Will you?" "Why not? After all, your body is a delicious cake. Even Qi Yu wants to take it for himself. Naturally, I'm tempted as well." The inner demon said casually and without hiding anything. "Hee, you're really straightforward. I'm standing right next to you. Quickly destroy me and then take over my body." Tang Zheng spread out his hands as if he did not mind at all. The inner demon frowned. If it was when he first met Tang Zheng, he would have attacked him like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey without saying a word. But now, he did not dare to act rashly. He already knew too much about Tang Zheng. It was precisely because he knew too much that he knew Tang Zheng was not simple. Every time Tang Zheng did something, he would have his own considerations. He would weigh the pros and cons. He would not carelessly ignore them. Tang Zheng was so defenseless that he allowed the inner demons to take over his body. The inner demons would be fools if they did that. He must have other methods. If I really do that, I'm afraid I'll never be able to leave this place. The inner demons secretly pondered. In addition, his 9-yang saint body and the various mysterious techniques he cultivates are also very strange. I can't understand them at all. If there's a backlash, then I'll be in for a tragedy. The inner demons weighed the pros and cons and suddenly grinned. "Ha ha ha, young man, do you think I'm the kind of person who goes back on my words and bites the hand that feeds me? Qi Yu and I are not jackals of the same tribe. I can't thank you enough for letting me out of this cage. How can I go back on my words?" Tang Zheng secretly sighed in relief. He actually did not have full confidence in dealing with the inner demons. Originally, this move was a risky move. He had no choice but to make this choice. He deliberately calmed down. Finally, he managed to suppress the inner demons, making them not dare to act rashly. Tang Zheng's calm and collected expression made the inner demons even more unable to figure out what was true and what was false. It also made him even more certain of his judgment. Tang Zheng definitely had another trump card. If he made a move himself, then he would be looking for trouble. Tang Zheng did not lose his momentum and directly said, "Inner demons, since I've already broken out of this cage, then it's time for you to keep your promise." The inner demons was not in a hurry to deny it. He smiled and said, "Are you sure you won't change your request? I can still give you one more chance to go back on your words." Tang Zheng shook his head without hesitation. "There's no need to go back on my words. I've already made a decision, so it means I've already thought it through." The inner demons shrugged and resentfully said, "All right then. In any case, you're the one who's losing out, not me. Are you ready?" Tang Zheng nodded. "Let's begin." After saying this, he held his breath. He actually knew that this condition of his was not very pleasing. It was even a bit of a waste of such a good opportunity. If he had raised some other conditions, he might have been able to obtain more substantial benefits. But he also had other considerations. The inner demons chuckled. "Young man, I know what you're thinking. Do you think no one has ever had this idea before? But they've all returned empty-handed. The Nightmare God art has very high requirements for the cultivator, but if I were to say that compared to my God art, it's actually very simple. This is because the requirements for my inner demon's art are much higher. After so many years, I've never met anyone who can cultivate my God art. Last time, I only taught you a little bit of it, so anyone can cultivate it. But now, what you want is my core God art. There's no way you can cultivate it." It turned out that one of Tang Zheng's conditions was for the inner demons to teach him the core inner demon's art. The inner demons knew his situation, so when he heard this request, he laughed and even asked Tang Zheng to change it to another condition. Tang Zheng was unmoved and said calmly, "Whether or not I can cultivate it is my business. You don't have to worry about it." The inner demons rolled his eyes and said, "Fine, then take it." He stretched out a finger and pointed at Tang Zheng. Before his finger could reach Tang Zheng's forehead, a ray of light flew out from the inner demon's fingertip. Pop! The light entered Tang Zheng's forehead and then exploded in his brain, turning into a million rays of light. Tang Zheng didn't panic. He closed his eyes and calmed his mind, quietly feeling everything. The multicolored lights slowly converged, and in the end, it turned into words that filled Tang Zheng's brain, flickering with light. Tang Zheng wasn't in a hurry to understand the mysteries within. He opened his eyes and looked at the inner demons. The inner demons asked jokingly, "How do you feel?" "I'll find time to study it." Then I'm looking forward to the results." Although he said so, the inner demons didn't believe that Tang Zheng could really understand the mysteries within. The inner demons generously passed his technique to Tang Zheng, not because he was selfless, but because he wasn't worried that Tang Zheng would learn it. "Now you'll have to fulfill the second condition," Tang Zheng said. "Of course I want to, but do you think I can deal with Qiyu in my current state?" The inner demon spread his hands and asked with a smile. Tang Zheng of course knew that he couldn't let the inner demons deal with Qiyu like this. The inner demons were just a strand of soul, they were no match for Qiyu. Therefore, he had to find a way to let the inner demons out of his body and resurrect him. Without the cage, the inner demons could be freely resurrected, but how to resurrect them was a key problem. When Qiyu was resurrected, he had no choice but to choose Song Yu's body, which reduced his strength. The inner demons certainly didn't want to follow in Qiyu's footsteps. He definitely wanted to find a body that he was satisfied with. Tang Zheng thought about this problem, but couldn't find a suitable choice, so he said, "Inner demons, of course I'll help you resurrect, but the key is how?" The inner demons wasn't stumped by this question. "I already have a suitable candidate." Tang Zheng asked in surprise, "Who?" The inner demons said mysteriously, "You'll know when the time comes." Tang Zheng frowned, deliberately mystifying. The inner demon smiled proudly, "This body is the most suitable. Although Qiyu was resurrected before me, I have a way to catch up. Then I'll wait and see." Since the inner demons didn't want to say, he couldn't force them. In the end, he simply withdrew from Qiyu's heart. Walking out of the room, the villa wasn't quiet. Almost everyone was cultivating in their own rooms. Creak. Fang Shishi's door opened, and Huang Xiang respectfully opened the door. When Fang Shishi was cultivating in the room, Huang Xiang had been guarding the door, not letting anyone get close. Huang Xiang was conscientious, which made Tang Zheng feel relieved. Tian Chanzi's gift was really good. Fang Shishi smiled like a flower and walked towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng quickly walked up to her and held her hand. "How was it?" Fang Shishi smiled and nodded. Huang Xiang quietly stood to the side and glanced at Tang Zheng. He was so quiet that he looked like a puppet. The two of them talked about their experiences during cultivation as they walked out. Huang Xiang followed behind step by step. Suddenly, Huang Xiang couldn't help but bump into Tang Zheng. Chapter 1332. Under normal circumstances, no matter how fast Huang Xiang was, Tang Zheng would definitely be able to dodge in time. After all, the difference in cultivation between the two was not small. For every 2 people who read romance novels, one of them had registered an account. But this time, Tang Zheng felt that his body seemed to be restrained by some kind of force, and he was unable to block him. The two of them were like magnets. Fang Shishi also noticed that something was wrong. She wanted to stop them, but it was too late. Bang! They collided with each other, but the force was not strong. Tang Zheng did not move at all, and he was stuck to Huang Xiang. Suddenly, Tang Zheng felt a chill in his heart. It seemed that something had rushed out of his body and entered Huang Xiang's body. He was shocked and suddenly realized. He cried out, "Inner demons, are you messing with me?" The inner demons did not answer him. He quickly immersed his mind and his consciousness entered Qiyu's heart. Qiyu's heart was empty. There was no sign of the inner demons. The inner demons, he, actually left my body. That feeling just now was his soul leaving my body and entering Huang Xiang's body. Tang Zheng gradually understood. The inner demons had always said that they had found a good body that could catch up to Qi Yu's strength. Even in his dreams, Tang Zheng would never have thought that the heart demon would actually have designs on Huang Xiang. In fact, after Huang Xiang became a puppet, his original consciousness had already been erased by Tian Chanzi. In other words, Huang Xiang was already dead. This body was just an empty shell, and only the most instinctive consciousness was left. This allowed him to cultivate without any distractions, and his speed improved by leaps and bounds. Huang Xiang was an ownerless body, and his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds to the soul formation realm. The inner demons indeed had a good eye for choosing him. However, this way, Fang Shishir would lose a responsible bodyguard. Tang Zheng was indignant. No wonder the inner demons were deliberately mystifying things. He was worried that if he told the truth, Tang Zheng would interfere and prevent him from fusing with Huang Xiang's body. In fact, it was not difficult to achieve this. As long as the two were not in close contact, the inner demons would not be able to succeed. Just now, the two of them were very close to each other, so the inner demons cast a spell to make the two of them close together quickly, and he succeeded. Tang Zheng took a step back, while Huang Xiang stood in his original position. His originally infatuated expression changed, and traces of spirit energy were emitted from his eyes. "Inner demons, have you gotten what you wanted?" Tang Zheng asked impatiently. The inner demons did not answer. Fang Shishir was surprised and asked, "What's going on?" Tang Zheng sighed and said, "Shishir, I'm afraid you won't have a bodyguard in the future." Fang Shishir looked left and right, but did not understand what was going on. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, a loud laughter came from Huang Xiang's mouth. This laughter was very bold and full of dominance, making people who heard it uncontrollably swayed. As if it had magical powers. Fang Shishir quickly covered her ears and looked at Huang Xiang with a frown. Her eyes were full of curiosity and unfamiliarity. She knew Huang Xiang well enough. After all, she was his master. But this time, she found Huang Xiang to be so unfamiliar. "You. What's wrong?" She thought that something bad happened to Huang Xiang and asked with concern. Tang Zheng immediately protected Fang Shishir behind him and used his secret technique to counteract the magic of the laughter. But in the villa area, everyone was alarmed by this laughter. Bang bang bang. All the doors of the villa were pushed open, and one by one, strong figures rushed out from the door. So, the figures flew in all directions, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived beside the few people. At the same time, the witch clan guards outside the villa also rushed in, as if they were facing a great enemy. The reason why everyone had such a big reaction was because they were shocked by this laughter. The layman watched the show, while the expert watched the skill. These people were not ordinary people, so they could hear the extraordinariness of this laughter. They understood that the person who could make this kind of laughter was definitely not an ordinary person. Everyone surrounded him so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through as they stared at Huang Xiang and then at Tang Zheng, not understanding what was going on. Tang Zheng's expression was cold, and said, "Inner demons, stop laughing." The laughter suddenly stopped, and a sharp gaze looked at Tang Zheng, then swept across the crowd, full of condescension and disdain. Everyone felt as if there was a knife on their back, and they were all a little uncomfortable under this gaze. But their expressions were even more puzzled, especially when Tian Chanzi shouted, "Huang Xiang, what the hell are you doing?" The inner demons looked at Tian Chanzi with a smile, and said, "From now on, there is no Huang Xiang in this world, only me, the inner demons." "Who are the inner demons?" someone asked one after another. Everyone did not know much about the inner demons, and Tang Zheng did not say much before, so they could not help but look at him in confusion. But Tian Chanzi and the Empyrean Fairy had a deep impression of the battle in the 100,000 mountains, especially the giant bronze coffin. Memories came flooding in like a tide, causing their nerves to immediately tense up. The inner demons have been resurrected. The two muttered to themselves, and their expressions were quite unnatural. This was especially true for Tian Chanzi, who had been possessed by a strand of the Yellow Emperor's soul and confronted the inner demons. During that battle, Tianqianzi's body was almost completely controlled by the Yellow Emperor's soul. Tang Zheng had once mentioned the inner demons to the two, but it was only an understatement. When the two heard that the inner demons were imprisoned in a cage, they did not pay too much attention to it. They thought that the inner demons would definitely never see the light of day again. After all, Qiyu had solemnly vowed that no one but him could open the cage, and Qiyu would not be so kind as to return to Qiyu's heart to open the cage. But they never would have thought that things would not develop as they expected. Of course I've been resurrected. From now on, I'm free to roam the world, and no one will ever be able to trap me again, the inner demons said loudly, high-spirited. Many people did not know much about the inner demons, and looked at him suspiciously. They did not know where he got his confidence from, and why he dared to say such arrogant words. Tianqianzi, I really want to thank you for preparing such a good body for me, the inner demon said to Tianqianzi with a smile. Tianqianzi's expression kept changing, and he did not know how to respond. Seeing that everyone was on guard, the inner demons moved his muscles and bones, making crackling sounds. Many people were frightened, and they were ready to attack. The inner demons shook his head and sighed, don't even think about attacking me. You guys are not my match at all. Many people showed a doubtful expression, and it was obvious that they did not believe his words. But no one acted rashly, and they all looked at Tang Zheng. Obviously, he was the one who understood the situation the best. Inner demons, stop scaring people. You were deliberately mystifying because of this body. Now that you've succeeded, it's time to fulfill your promise. Tang Zheng quickly adjusted his attitude. Things had already come to this, and there was no way he could change it. In fact, this was not a big loss to him, except that Fang Shishir had one less bodyguard. Comparing this bodyguard to the inner demons, it was obvious who was more useful. Therefore, the inner demon's resurrection was more important to him, and could help him block the threat from Qiyu. When the others heard the word promise, they knew that there must be some agreement between them. The Empyrean fairy could not wait to ask, what promise? The inner demons will block Qiyu's attack for us. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed, especially those who knew the strength of the inner demons. It was as if they had seen the dawn of hope, and their eyes were full of splendor. Everyone knew very well that after the Battle of Mount Tai, the demon race was defeated, and a large part of the reason was that Qiyu was injured and could not use his strength. But once he fully recovered, he would definitely find a way to get revenge. After all, the Battle of Mount Tai ruined the plan of the Wildlands, which was one of Qiyu's major plans. Now, Qiyu must be furious. Tang Zheng knew Qiyu well, so he also knew that Qiyu would not let this go. He was in the light, and Qiyu was in the dark. Besides consolidating his strength, there was no other way to avoid this revenge. So, you released him from the confinement? The Empyrean fairy asked thoughtfully. Tang Zheng nodded. No one criticized Tang Zheng's decision. After all, everyone knew that the current situation was critical, and this was a decision he had no choice but to make. Do you trust him? The Empyrean fairy asked directly. Tang Zheng stared at the inner demons with a burning gaze, saying, the inner demons are famous and always keep their promises. If I go back on my words, I'm afraid I'll be ridiculed by the world. So, of course, I trust him. He was greatly comforted by the high praise he had received from the inner demon. At the same time, these words shocked him. If he really did go back on his words, then his bad reputation would spread all over the world. When that time came, anyone who mentioned him would say that he went back on his words. He wasn't like other people who would do anything for power and status. He still cherished his own feathers and reputation. No, I can't let the world think that I'm going back on my words and that I'm a treacherous villain. I'm not like Qiyu and the Yellow Emperor. The inner demons thought highly of himself and quickly rejected this idea in his heart. Of course, there was only one way to go back on his words and not let outsiders know. That was to kill everyone present. But he looked at the Empyrean fairy and then at Tang Zheng and the others. He did not have full confidence that he could kill all of them and not let a single one escape. He let out a long sigh and suppressed the complicated thoughts in his heart. He said righteously, "What kind of person do you think I am? How can I be such a treacherous, despicable person?" Tang Jing sighed in relief. Since the inner demons had accepted this praise, then at least they would not go back on their words in the short term. Hearing this, the others also felt relieved. Only Fang Shishir had a strange expression between her eyebrows. After all, she had been with Huang Xiang for so long. Although the other party was a puppet, Fang Shishir had a kind heart and would still feel a trace of reluctance. Tang Zheng was keenly aware of her thoughts. His heart moved and he said to the inner demons, "You deliberately mystified me and took over Huang Xiang's body when I wasn't paying attention. This is equivalent to taking away Shishir's bodyguard. You should at least compensate her a little. Otherwise, this will not live up to your illustrious reputation as the inner demons. Otherwise, in the future, people will say that you inner demons are just robbers." Hearing this, the inner demons was stunned. They did not expect that Tang Zheng would dare to make such an additional request. The others were also shocked. The atmosphere became a little strange. Fang Shishir suddenly raised her head and looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. Chapter 1333. Fang Shishir's eyes lit up. It wasn't that she cared about the inner demon's so-called compensation, but Tang Zheng's concern made her feel very happy and sweet. "You dare to ask me for something?" The inner demon stared at Tang Zheng in surprise, his voice becoming deeper. Tang Zheng wasn't scared by the inner demon's imposing manner at all. He said calmly, "You took over someone else's body, this is already a great benefit. Shouldn't you be compensated? Young man, besides you, no one has ever asked me for so many things. Aren't you afraid of angering me and adding another enemy?" The inner demons asked aggressively. Tang Jing shook his head, "I'm not afraid, because you, the inner demons, are not unreasonable like other people. You are a reasonable person." The second half of the compliment made the inner demon's tense atmosphere collapse. He laughed loudly, "Ha ha ha, there are still people in this world who understand me. I am different from Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor. That's why they want to destroy me. Yes, since you have been resurrected, all the more reason to look for them to settle this debt." Tang Zheng encouraged. "Of course, this is a deep hatred, how could I forget? I will definitely settle this debt with them." The hatred in the inner demon's words was very strong. "Then how are you going to compensate Shishir?" Tang Zheng asked. The inner demons turned his head and looked at Fang Shishir thoughtfully. He said, "Little girl, your cultivation is too weak, and you can't practice my technique, so how to compensate is really a headache. I don't need compensation." Fang Shishir shook her head. Why, are you looking down on me, the inner demons?" The inner demons frowned and asked unhappily. Fang Shishir quickly waved her hand, "That's not what I meant, but I am already very satisfied." When the others heard this, they quickly tried to persuade her. Tang Jing also sighed. Fang Shishir was too kind, rejecting such a good opportunity. But he didn't refute her, this was her choice, and he respected her choice. The inner demons stared at Fang Shishir, as if trying to distinguish whether she was telling the truth or not. Fang Shishir's heart was magnanimous and her expression was magnanimous. In the end, the inner demons had to admit that her words were from the bottom of her heart. Suddenly, the inner demons' eyes lit up and said meaningfully, "You don't want to accept my compensation, I will give you compensation. What I don't want to give, no one can have. On the contrary, what I want to give, no one can refuse." These words were incomparably tyrannical, but when Tang Jing heard it, he was suddenly stunned and immediately realized that this was a great thing. Good people will be rewarded. Fang Shishir was so kind that she had such a pleasant surprise. Fang Shishir opened her mouth, obviously still wanting to refuse. When the others saw this, their hearts jumped to their throats, and they couldn't wait to cover her mouth. The inner demons didn't give her a chance to refuse, and gently pointed his finger. The two of them were very close to each other, and this finger pointed right between Fang Shishi's eyebrows. She was suddenly startled, and her mind was in a trance. Finally, she softly fell to the ground. Tang Zheng's eyes were quick, and he quickly caught her. He angrily stared at the inner demons, and sternly asked, "What did you do to her?" The inner demons took back his hand, and deliberately said mysteriously, "When she wakes up, you will naturally know." Tang Zheng didn't continue to ask, knowing that it would be useless to ask. The others' hearts were also in their throats. If something happened to Fang Shishi, Tang Zheng would probably directly raise his sword and slash at the inner demons. The inner demons wasn't worried about Fang Shishi at all, and casually said, "I promise to help you deal with Qiyu. When he attacks, I will naturally make my move." As he said this, he walked out of the door. The packed crowd automatically parted to make a path. "Where are you going?" Tang Zheng asked. "This world is completely different from tens of thousands of years ago. When I was in your body, I couldn't see it clearly. Now, I want to see this so-called modern world." As his voice fell, the inner demons had already disappeared through the door. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. "Will he come back?" Tian Chanzi asked worriedly. Tang Zheng said without the slightest worry, "Since he said so, he will definitely come back. Everyone, don't worry." He wrapped his arms around Fang Shishi's waist and carried her up, saying, "I will take her back to the room to rest." He went upstairs, entered the room, and carefully placed Fang Shishi on the bed. She looked peaceful, without any signs of pain. Moreover, she seemed to be shrouded by a mysterious force. Even Tang Zheng couldn't completely see through this force. It seems that the inner demons didn't lie. He really is compensating Shishi, but I don't know what this so-called compensation is. "Shishi, you must wake up soon." He quietly guarded Fang Shishi's side, not leaving her side at all. That serene face had a kind of exceptionally soul-stirring beauty, causing Tang Zheng to be intoxicated as he looked at it. Fang Shishi had been with him all this time. They had experienced many hardships, and had become an indispensable part of his life. Although he had other women, Fang Shishi's position was irreplaceable. In the evening, the door opened and Yi Dingdang tiptoed in. She stretched her neck to look at Fang Shishi and asked in a low voice, "She still hasn't woken up?" Tang Zheng shook his head. "You go down and eat. I will look after her." Yi Dingdang said. "No, I will look after her. If anything happens, I can deal with it immediately. Moreover, when she wakes up, she will definitely want to see me." Tang Zheng said gently. Yi Dingdang wasn't jealous. She leaned into Tang Zheng's arms and said, "Shishi will definitely be very happy to hear this." Tang Zheng hugged Yi Dingdang and stroked her black hair, saying, "Dingdang, you have suffered because of me." Yi Dingdang raised her head and kissed Tang Zheng's chin with her cherry lips. She smiled and said, "Silly, we are willing. So many beautiful women want this opportunity but don't have it." Although she was smiling happily, Tang Zheng knew the bitterness in it and could only hug her tighter. "I am a greedy guy. I don't want any of you to leave me. I know this is very scoundrel, but this is what I think. I will do my best to give you the best. I will protect you and love you forever," Tang Zheng said resolutely. When Yi Dingdang heard this, she couldn't help but be moved. She covered his mouth with her small hand and said as if in a dream, "Don't say any more, I understand, we all understand. Otherwise, we wouldn't have stayed by your side. I'll never leave you. With you guys, what else can I ask for?" Tang Zheng held her hand and said contentedly. Yi Dingdang's lips curled into a smile. She thought, "With you, I am satisfied for the rest of my life." Fang Shishi made a sound. The two of them quickly stood up and stared at Fang Shishi. They asked, "Shishi, are you awake? How are you?" Fang Shishi slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Tang Zheng's face. Her heart warmed and she said, "I'm fine." Tang Zheng quickly sat on the bed and helped her up. He let her lean on his chest and asked, is there anything wrong with your body? The corner of Fang Shishi's mouth curled up into a faint smile as she said, I feel extremely good. All of my meridians are unobstructed and my true qi is even more vigorous. More importantly, there is something more in my brain. What is it? My divine sense is more powerful. Moreover, I am immune to spiritual attacks. Fang Shishi said. Immune to spiritual attacks? Tang Zheng was shocked. Yi Dingdang had a suspicious look on her face. Obviously, she did not understand the meaning behind these words. However, Tang Zheng was different. He knew a lot about spiritual attacks. Back then, in the deep canyon of the prehistoric heavenly tomb, when they opened the bronze coffin, the inner demons used a spiritual attack on them, causing them to fall into their own illusions. Spiritual attacks were also the inner demons' most powerful attacks. His actual combat level was not very high, but his spiritual attacks were extremely terrifying, causing his enemies to be unable to guard against them. In fact, even if they were on guard, it would be useless. They would still be caught in his trap. Nightmare's traceless dream was also a type of spiritual attack, but it could not be compared to the inner demons. Fang Shishi was immune to spiritual attacks, which meant that in the future, when she met Yi Meiyu's traceless dream, it would have no effect on her at all. It was just that he did not know if Fang Shishi would be immune to the attacks of the inner demons. If she was also immune, then she would be the first person in the world to be immune to the attacks of the inner demons. Although Tang Zheng had used the exorcist mirror to expel the inner demons in the Langya Pavilion, he had a certain degree of immunity to spiritual attacks. However, he was still unable to achieve 100% immunity. That was why he saw himself in the bronze coffin. The other two did not understand the mystery behind it, so Tang Zheng carefully explained it to them. The two of them were enlightened. Fang Shishi could not hide her joy. Yi Dingdang rolled her eyes and said, Shishi, this way, you won't have to be afraid of Yi Meiyu's attacks in the future. Yi Meiyu has always been against me and sees me as a thorn in her side. Furthermore, the assassins we encountered in the ordinary balance were sent by her. Fang Shishi did not know that there was such a complicated story. She opened her eyes wide in shock and asked, how could she be so heartless as to make a move on her own family? What does she not dare to do? Don't you see that the Ya family has already been turned into a pile of loose sand by her? Although I don't like this Ya family, every time I hear my father talk about this matter, I will sigh and sigh endlessly. This was all caused by Yi Meiyu. Yi Dingdang said indignantly. Shishi, don't worry. This kind of person will definitely have retribution. Fang Shishi advised. Yi Meiyu will always target me. Her heart's dream traceless technique is extremely powerful and I can't break it. So, you must help me in the future. We are sisters, so don't be so polite. If we work together and fight against a common enemy, we will definitely be able to defeat her. Fang Shishi held on to Yi Dingdang's hand. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Alright, don't worry. Yi Meiyu killed Nightmare, and when the truth is revealed in the future, Mo Xia will definitely not let her off. At that time, we won't even need to do anything, and she won't have a good ending. Tang Zheng comforted. He did not have the slightest good impression of Yi Meiyu. Just as they were talking about Yi Meiyu, she was standing in a mysterious place, surrounded by the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. Chapter 1334. These containers that were carved with complicated patterns were jade bottles. They were sparkling and translucent, emitting a gentle luster. All the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor focused their gazes on these jade bottles. Their gazes were burning with passion, even more fanatical than when they stared at the gold, silver, and jewelry. Under Yi Meiyu's calm appearance, a storm was raging in her heart. He was also looking forward to the resurrection of the Yellow Emperor. This time, they had gathered here to resurrect the Yellow Emperor. Some time ago, they had spent a lot of energy and manpower to search for the life totem. They had all visited the 8 life totem lands formed by nature and carefully avoided the people sent by Tang Zheng. Those who participated in this operation were all the elites of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. There were even a few times when Immerse personally took action. Naturally, it was very easy and did not alarm Tang Zheng's men. Tang Zheng was still in the dark. He thought that his plan was flawless and did not give the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor an opportunity to obtain the pure yang energy between heaven and earth. However, what they didn't know was that Immerse had already obtained everything he wanted without leaving a single trace. Gathering the soul of the Golden Crow again and allowing the Yellow Emperor to reappear in the world was not too far-fetched. Immerse waved his hand, and all the jade bottles flew into the air and arranged themselves in a certain order. The former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor moved and spread out in all directions, forming a strange formation. Everyone raised their hands high and chanted. Waves of magic power spread out from their bodies and enveloped the air. Open! Immerse shouted, and the seal of the jade bottle automatically unlocked. Waves of pure yang energy flew out from the jade bottle and instantly gathered in the air, resonating with the magic power. Immerse was in high spirits, and a ray of light flew out from his hand. It was the Ganjiang sword, and the blood-red sword light dyed half of the sky red. The Ganjiang sword steadily stopped in mid-air, at the center of the intersection of the two forces. Soul of the Golden Crow, gather. Back then, the souls of the Golden Crow were all hit by the sun shooting arrows and exploded into pieces, scattering on Sky Mountain. Immerse's plan was to use the pure yang energy to gather the souls of the Golden Crow scattered on Sky Mountain like a magnet. Without a doubt, this was a very clever plan. It was much faster than searching for the soul of the Golden Crow in every corner. Sky Mountain was too big, and the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates were too few. They were not able to handle such a large amount of work. This time, they had gathered at the peak of Sky Mountain under the cover of night to avoid being noticed by others. They wanted to gather the scattered souls of the Golden Crows. Actually, ever since he knew Immerse, Tang Zheng, and Tang Zheng. However, these people were Immerse was the Golden Crow Yi. Taking advantage of the darkness of the night, Immerse used a camouflage technique to avoid these people and successfully cast a spell on Heavenly Mountain. Immerse had learned to be smart. She did not make a big fuss. Instead, she was sneaky. She even set up restrictions to prevent outsiders from seeing the signs of the spell. Therefore, the people that Tang Zheng had sent to investigate the vicinity of Sky Mountain did not notice anything unusual. They did not realize that this was an unusual night. When Immerse's voice fell, the sword radiance of the Ganjiang sword surged. A blood-red light rushed into the sky, and the sword hummed continuously. The pure yang energy gathered around the Ganjiang sword. Under the control of a mysterious power, it was like a giant magnet, rapidly absorbing the souls of the Golden Crow on Sky Mountain. A spot of light rose from a corner of the sky, like a firefly, and gathered at the peak of Sky Mountain. Another spot of light rose into the sky. These spots of light were the souls of the Golden Crow scattered in every corner of Sky Mountain. Not long after, countless spots of light rose from Sky Mountain and streaked across the sky. They were more dazzling than a meteor shower, and gathered at the Ganjiang sword. Finally, Tang Zheng's people on the Heavenly Mountain discovered some clues, and all of them stared at the scene in shock. What's going on? These people looked at each other, unable to figure out what was going on. In the sky, more and more spots of light gathered together, becoming bigger and bigger. The pitch-black sky slowly brightened, like the dawn of the rising sun. Immerse and the others were overjoyed when they saw this scene. This was the beginning of success. Everyone was even more focused as they continued to cast their spells. Unknowingly, a sun hung in the sky. The sunlight immediately dispelled the darkness, and the peak of Sky Mountain became as bright as day. Light shot in all directions, and not long after, the foot of Sky Mountain also became bright. The souls of the Golden Crow, the souls of the Golden Crow. Tang Zheng's subordinates finally noticed something and shouted. Quick, report this. This is the work of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. Damn it, they must be using a camouflage to avoid us. Some smart people immediately understood the reason and stomped their feet hatefully. They immediately dialed Tang Zheng's number. In the middle of the night, Tang Zheng, who was far away in the capital, was woken up by the ringing of his phone. He sat up straight as if he had a spring installed. "Hello. Master, the souls of the Golden Crow have been reunited." A witch shouted impatiently, her voice trembling. Tang Zheng jumped to the floor with a bang. His sleepiness was completely gone, and the hand that was holding the phone couldn't help but tighten. "What did you say?" This cry of alarm woke the person on the bed. Wu rubbed his eyes and sat up from the bed, asking, "What's wrong?" Tang Zheng gestured for him to keep quiet. Wu understood and his heart trembled. He quickly got off the bed and stood beside Tang Zheng, looking at him worriedly. "I don't know what method the Yellow Emperor's subordinates used, but they are reuniting the souls of the Golden Crow." The other party took a deep breath and repeated. "The soul of the Golden Crow has been reunited." Tang Zheng finally heard it clearly, but he couldn't help but shout loudly. His voice was so loud that he was shocked. Suddenly, a ray of light shone in from the window. It was like a ray of morning light, dispelling the darkness in the room and landing on Tang Zheng's shoulder. Tang Zheng bathed in the sunlight, his body dyed golden. His brows immediately furrowed into a Chuan character as he looked at the sunlight in the sky. Wu looked at the clock on the wall. It was clearly 2 in the morning. She immediately opened her mouth wide and her chin almost fell to the ground. "It's only the middle of the night, how can there be a sun?" Hearing this, Wu couldn't help but exclaim, but Tang Zheng's heart sank to the bottom. He already understood that all of this was caused by the soul of the Golden Crow being reunited. That meant that this world would be plunged into misery and suffering. The people outside the house were also frightened by this scene. The witches all raised their heads to look at the sky, thinking that they were seeing things. At the same time, many of the night owls who had not slept in the middle of the night were completely dumbstruck by this scene. On the streets and alleys, on the rooftops of various buildings, many people gradually gathered as they watched this inconceivable scene. Although many unimaginable things had happened all over the world in the past year, the sun in the middle of the night was still shocking. "Master, what should we do now?" The voice on the phone finally pulled back Tang Zheng's thoughts. His heart trembled as he said in a deep voice, "Don't fight head-on. First, find out the situation of the witch clan and report to me at any time." After hanging up the phone, Tang Zheng rushed out of the bedroom. Wu, wearing a thin nightgown, chased after him. Upstairs, the other rooms opened one after another. Everyone saw Tang Zheng and Wu walking out of the same room. No one was surprised. The relationship between them was already half open. Everyone knew that it was normal for them to sleep together in the middle of the night. There was no need to make a fuss. "The sun is out?" Someone pointed out the window and exclaimed. The others also nodded. They were obviously frightened by this scene. Tang Zheng comforted him in a deep voice, "Everyone, don't panic for the time being." These people had basically experienced several life and death battles, and their nerves were already very strong. They were not too worried, and after hearing Tang Zheng's words, they all asked what was going on. Tang Zheng did not hide anything and said truthfully, "The former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor are reuniting with the soul of the Golden Crow." "What? Then wouldn't that be another 10 days? No, 9 suns in the sky?" Tang Zheng remained silent, which could be considered as a tacit agreement. In the middle of the night, without nature's own sun, the 9 souls of the Golden Crow rose into the sky, which meant that there were only 9 so-called suns. Then what should we do? This news really shocked everyone. They all asked for countermeasures, and all kinds of suggestions began to be made. But in the end, they all looked at Tang Zheng, waiting for him to make the final decision. Although Tang Zheng was very anxious, he was not in a hurry. He methodically arranged, Empyrean Fairy, Thundercloud Beast, Scarlet Lunar Beast, we will go to Sky Mountain to stop the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. Tian Chanzi, you and the others will stay at home and protect yourselves. If anything happens, contact me immediately. He had to be constantly on guard against the attacks of the demon clan or other hostile forces, so there must be someone important at home. But this time, they would definitely need a powerful force to stop the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. The Empyrean fairy and the other mythical beasts could work together to maximize their effectiveness. As for Xiao Bai, if it woke up, it would be even more effective. However, this little guy seemed to have not completely digested the things it had absorbed and was still hibernating. Tang Zheng had gone through many tests and established an absolute WeChat. Therefore, when he said these words, no one questioned or refuted, which saved a lot of time. Somersault cloud. Tang Zheng shouted without hesitation. The somersault cloud appeared outside the door. The others went back to their rooms to change their clothes and jumped on the somersault cloud. Then, they flew towards Sky Mountain. The light on Sky Mountain became more and more intense. The second soul of the golden crow had already risen. The hot air dispersed the cold wind in the middle of the night. The scorching heat descended on the earth, and the temperature rose rapidly. When they saw the second soul of the golden crow, the ordinary people immediately remembered the scene of the 10 suns in the sky a long time ago. It caused a lot of chaos. Could it be that 10 suns were going to rise in the middle of the night? At that time, the heat would be unbearable, and everyone would die from the heat. Panic immediately spread through the streets and alleys. Moreover, the soul of the golden crow gradually woke people up from their sleep. Suddenly, the whole land woke up in the middle of the night. Chapter 1335. The earth woke up in the middle of the night, and so did the people who lived there. They looked at the scene in horror. Looking at the 2 suns above their heads, the memories in the depths of their minds came back, and they were scared stiff. The smart ones immediately found a place to hide. Otherwise, when more suns rose in the sky, they would be roasted into human jerky. Everywhere was in chaos. Inside the high walls of the inner palace, 100 Faces, who was disguised as the leader, stood in front of the bed. When the first sun rose, he sensed something and got up. The mechanical warriors also came to his door, as if they were facing a great enemy. Junko also got up from the bed. She was naked, and her slim body made people's blood boil. 100 Faces did not turn his head, and he looked at the sky in a daze. Junko hooked her hands around 100 Faces' waist, leaned her chin on his shoulder, and pressed her soft chest against his back. She whispered, "Master, what's going on?" She was obviously frightened by the strange phenomenon in the sky, and her eyes couldn't help but stare. 100 Faces said, "The Yellow Emperor's former subordinates are condensing the soul of the golden crow again." Junko was shocked. She understood the meaning of this sentence. She exclaimed, then aren't we in danger? It said that when the 10 suns shine in the sky, the world will be turned into a sea of fire, and the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. 100 Faces nodded. Yes, the soul of the golden crow is indeed extraordinary. Then, won't everything we have planned become meaningless? This world will not exist anymore. Junko asked. 100 Faces sneered. How can it be that easy? Do you think the others will just sit back and do nothing? I bet that Tang Zheng must be rushing to Tian Shan without stopping. Junko's expression turned cold when she heard this name. This name had caused her too much shock and confusion. Can he stop all of this? The corner of the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign's mouth hooked up into a playful smile, and said meaningfully, "Don't underestimate Tang Zheng's strength and determination. I watched him rise step by step, and my understanding of him also increased. He is soft-hearted and has great love for the people of the world. How could he watch as innocent people suffer such an undeserved calamity?" Junko curled her lips and said disapprovingly, "That's because he's a hypocrite. Is he deliberately acting like this? What great love! Is he that selfless?" The 100 Transformation Star-Lord smiled and declined to comment. "What should we do? Are we not going to do anything?" Junko paused for a moment and then asked worriedly, "What if we are not prepared at all, and Tang Zheng is stopped from being one of the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor? What should we do then?" Don't worry. Even if he doesn't succeed, there's still that guy, Chiyu, right? He was just tricked by Immerse and lost a great general like Saint King. How could he let this go? The 100-change-star monarch explained. Junko still wanted to ask more questions, but 100 Faces Star Lord turned around and hugged her. His body, which was more than 10 kilograms, was as light as a feather. Junko understood tacitly and immediately let out a soft cry. She hugged 100 Faces Star Lord's neck. Master, you're so bad. The 100 Faces Star Lord chuckled. A great battle had begun. At the same time, Chiyu looked up at the sky and immediately locked onto the two suns hanging high in the sky. He gritted his teeth and said, Immerse, you really want to resurrect the Yellow Emperor? Wishful thinking. Although Immerse kept talking big and didn't put the Yellow Emperor in his eyes, he was still very afraid of the Yellow Emperor and didn't want him to be resurrected. After all, the Yellow Emperor had defeated him before. This was a battle of strength, an ironclad fact that he couldn't deny. If the Yellow Emperor was resurrected, he would definitely be a huge threat to him. Whoosh! Chiyu was like a ray of light as he soared into the sky and flew toward Sky Mountain. This time, he didn't bring any of his subordinates and chose to travel alone. If he wanted to ruin Huang Immerse's plan, he alone was enough. In the new secret base of the Azure Dragon Palace, in front of a stone room, Granny Li stood respectfully. My lord, the soul of the Golden Crow has been reunited. A disaster is coming. If we don't act now, the world will cease to exist and the martial artists will never have a place to stand. Granny Li said earnestly, almost tearing up. The stone room was very quiet and no one answered her. Bang! Granny Li's legs went soft and she knelt on the ground. She raised her voice and shouted, My lord, it'll be too late if we don't act now. If it was something else, Granny Li could ignore it or deal with it herself. This time, it was the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor who had gathered the soul of the Golden Crow to resurrect the Yellow Emperor. She didn't have the power to stop it. Only the great Lord Ji Wuxiang had the power to do so. That was why she knelt in front of the stone room and begged the great lord in tears. The great lord had been in seclusion for a long time and didn't see anyone. No one knew his specific situation. Granny Li would never disturb him unless it was a last resort. Just like the last earthquake in Dianan, she personally led people to deal with it. Although what she saw and heard later was far beyond her imagination, it didn't threaten the survival of the Azure Dragon Palace. Whoosh! A gust of wind rose from the ground and blew the leaves in front of the stone room. Granny Li was startled and seemed to have sensed something. She raised her head and stared at the stone room, not knowing what had happened. A surge of energy enveloped her, causing her to panic. She hurriedly circulated her inner energy, attempting to block this surge of energy outside the door. However, all her efforts were in vain and didn't have any effect at all. She stood up slowly and couldn't kneel anymore. Her heart skipped a beat and her eyes flashed with ecstasy. She stared at the stone room with joy. Creak. Creak. An awkward sound was heard. The stone room shook as if it was going to fall apart. Cracks appeared on the wall. Whoosh! A stone flew up from the wall. Then, the other stones flew up and floated in the air as if they were alive. Granny Li looked at the scene in shock. It seemed simple, but it was caused by an invisible force. She didn't have the strength to do it. All of this is the Great Lord's doing. Could it be that he has passed the obstacle? How strong is he? No one answered her question. When the last stone, the huge stone door, flew up, the Great Lord's figure was finally revealed. He stood in the middle of the rocks, and the rocks surrounded him like a responsible bodyguard. The Great Lord raised his foot and walked forward. The stones followed his footsteps and moved forward. This scene was extremely shocking to ordinary warriors because they couldn't do it. Granny Li was not a weak-kneed person, but when she saw this scene, it was as if she had seen a god. She had an impulse to bow down. My lord. she shouted in a daze. The Great Lord's eyes were deep as if there was endless magic. After locking onto Granny Lee, she had an illusion that she was deeply trapped. Thank you for your hard work. Granny Lee's tears gushed out of her eyes. She felt that it was worth it to hear him say that it was hard. She was the only one who knew the bitterness of it all. Without the Great Lord, it was impossible for her to support the huge Azure Dragon Hall. If she didn't have a certain dignity before, it would be impossible for her to do it. From now on, the era of warriors has arrived. The Great Lord's voice was very magnetic. It even had a kind of bewitching magic. Granny Lee was intoxicated by his voice and muttered to herself, "The era of warriors, yes, it belongs to us warriors. What kind of world is it?" Granny Lee was at a loss. She didn't know what to do. The Great Lord smiled and looked up at the sky. He looked at the two suns indifferently and said, "Feel it yourself." As soon as his voice fell, Granny Lee didn't have any specific feeling. The stars in the sky twinkled. However, the light of the stars was completely covered by the sunlight of the two suns. If it was still a dark night, the light of thousands of stars twinkling at the same time would also illuminate the earth. That scene would certainly be very shocking. Whoosh! The power of the stars fell from the sky and fell on Granny Lee. She was startled and looked at the sky in disbelief. Then, she looked at the indifferent Great Lord. This. She stuttered for a long time, but couldn't say a complete sentence. This was because this scene was simply too shocking. Her body was being rapidly transformed by the power of the stars, and the results were remarkable. Her cultivation soared like a rocket. She was the one involved, so she naturally felt it the most deeply. In addition, she had cultivated for most of her life, but she had never felt such surging power and rapid cultivation speed. Her worldview was almost turned upside down. Feel it quietly. This is the era of martial artists. The power of the stars is the noblest power in the world. What spiritual energy of heaven and earth? We martial artists disdain absorbing spiritual energy of heaven and earth because what belongs to us is the noblest power of the stars. Moreover, when we used the power of the stars in the past, outsiders would always find clues, especially Tang Zheng. Now, we don't have to worry about this problem. As long as it is under my control, the power of the stars is invisible. We don't have to worry about being discovered by outsiders. The Great Lord's provocative voice sounded in Granny Lee's ears. In the past, the Great Lord had said similar words, but not as arrogant as this time. Moreover, he had helped other warriors to absorb the power of the stars. Granny Lee had also felt it before, but it was completely different from this time. This was a qualitative leap. If every warrior's cultivation speed was so fast, then what was there to be afraid of? Immediately, Granny Lee's confidence increased, and she was in high spirits. When the power of the stars in her body gradually calmed down, she excitedly said incoherently, "From now on, it's our era, no, it's your era, Great Lord." A smug expression appeared on the High Lord's face. Although he appeared to be indifferent, in the depths of his heart, what he had done had already surpassed the ancients. What new era? He had only banished all the cultivators in the world to the sky beyond heaven, but he had not fundamentally changed the race of warriors. However, the Great Lord had done it. He would completely change the warriors. Not only their living conditions, but he would also reshape the cultivation system of warriors. This was an unprecedented masterpiece. Any genius would not be worth mentioning in front of the Great Lord. Chapter 1336. Granny Lee gradually calmed down from her shock. Looking at the third sun in the sky, her attention was attracted again. She asked, "My lord, it's already 3 suns. What should we do?" At this moment, she had absolute confidence that the Lord could defeat the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates and stop this disaster. The Lord remained calm and said lightly, "This world will belong to the martial artists. If others can't survive this disaster, then it's their fate." Granny Lee's heart skipped a beat. She immediately understood the meaning of the Lord's words. He was going to stand by and do nothing. Sure enough, the Lord continued, this is a sin committed by the cultivators. It can let others know more about the cruelty of the cultivators. It's good for us. Why should we stop it? But Granny Lee wanted to refute, but she swallowed her words. She had never been soft-hearted. Her mind flashed and she understood the Lord's intention. He wanted to let the world know about the evil of the cultivators through this incident. Then, they would hate the cultivators and naturally fall into the arms of the martial artists. Although the Lord was confident in his own strength, he was still a modern man. He understood the importance of the general public. He would not be like the ancient kings who ignored the general public. Instead, he would follow the will of the people and use it to his advantage. This was his wisdom. My lord, this time, someone will definitely stop the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. Will they succeed? At this time, Granny Lee was a little worried that the soul of the Golden Crow could not be fully condensed and the world would see the sins of the cultivators. If that happened, the Lord's plan would be disrupted. As for the life and death of ordinary people, Granny Lee did not care at all. Hearing this, the Lord did not care at all. He said, whether it succeeds or not, when the people see the suns hanging above their heads again, the fear and uneasiness in their hearts will be aroused again. This time, it will be completely aroused. They will not sit still and wait for death. For their lives, these people will do anything. The cultivators will definitely become the target of scorn, hated by everyone. Granny Lee felt as if she was suddenly enlightened. She kept praising the High Lord's foresight and wisdom. In the sky, a white cloud swept across the horizon. Tang Zheng, Li Xiaotian, and the Empyrean fairy stood on the somersault cloud. Before leaving, Tang Zheng suddenly remembered that Li Xiaotian was not part of this trip. After all, the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrows already belonged to her. Moreover, she had also cultivated Hoi's archery, which was a trump card against the soul of the Golden Crow. The three of them gazed into the distance in the direction of Heavenly Mountain. From time to time, he would look up at the sky. There were already 3 suns. The number was increasing so quickly that it made people speechless. It also gave people a deep sense of unease. A scorching heat wave rolled down from the sky and covered their bodies. Fortunately, they were not ordinary people. Circulating their martial arts, they were able to withstand the heat wave. However, the others were not so lucky. In the streets and alleys, the ordinary people were already drenched in sweat. Their moisture was quickly evaporating, and they looked like they were about to turn into human jerky. Many people directly jumped into the water, but the water was also steaming and quickly evaporated. Flames rose into the air from many places, and alarms rang out everywhere. Everyone felt a sense of despair, as if the god of death had descended. But at the same time, there was a strong anger in their hearts. It was like a volcano that was about to erupt. Cultivators, this is the evil of cultivators. They want to destroy humanity. Cultivators are the public enemy of humanity. Similar thoughts appeared in many people's minds, accompanied by anger that burned fiercely. In view of the previous few grand and earth-shattering events, cultivators were no longer an absolute secret group. Although the authorities had sealed off the real news and issued various seemingly scientific explanations, the ordinary people did not completely calm the panic in their hearts. They had also heard about the cultivators from various sources and rumors on the streets. It turned out that there was such a huge group of people hidden in the crowd. At that time, people did not have a direct impression of the likes and dislikes of the cultivators, nor did they have an absolute standpoint of benefits. But this time was different. The cultivators had caused all kinds of big events again and again, threatening the survival of the human race. Even a clay figurine had some anger. Moreover, this was a matter of life and death. They had no reason to retreat, and the hatred in their hearts for the cultivators grew day by day. Kill the cultivators, we are not willing to be sacrificial lambs. Yes, kill the cultivators. This group of bastards, even if we die, we will drag one of them down with us. Anger was contagious. It was as if there was an invisible hand controlling everything, causing the anger to become more and more intense. I heard that there are cultivators in a place. A very large area is occupied by these cultivators. Let's go find them and take revenge. Kill one and earn one. Yes, kill the cultivators. The crowd moved. The crowd was excited and crazily rushed towards a place. The heat wave caused the air they exhaled to be hot, as if it could ignite. Not long after, the crowd arrived at Tang Zheng's villa. This villa had been completely bought by him. Only his core members lived here, and almost all of them were cultivators. When the patrolling witches saw this group of excited people, they were shocked. Their attention was completely attracted by the soul of the golden crow in the sky. They did not expect that there would be people attacking the villa. Moreover, this group of people were clearly ordinary people. They were not martial artists, nor were they cultivators. They were a group of motley crew. 3 cobblers were better than Zhuge Liang, even if the other party's strength could not be compared to theirs. But after all, there were many of them. Their will was like a fortress. After twisting into a rope, the power that erupted was still not to be underestimated. The villa was protected by a large formation. The crowd could not break through it all. Although it was empty in front of them and there were no obstacles, the crowd was still blocked by an invisible wall. Bang, bang, bang. These people punched the protective barrier again and again, only to hear the sound of the air being torn apart. These people were rebounded by the huge force and were sent flying backwards. They could not break through the protective barrier at all. Instead, they were sent flying. However, this did not scare them away. Instead, it made them even more ferocious. They clamored to break through the protective barrier. Seeing this, the witches were helpless. They loudly advised them not to waste their energy and to leave this place quickly. Another sun appeared in the sky. 4 suns hung high in the sky, making the crowd even angrier. The people who were originally watching changed their attitude. Like the most ferocious beasts, they hysterically attacked the protective barrier. They did not listen to the witch's advice. They thought that the other party was afraid of them and deliberately gave in. Therefore, more and more people gathered outside the villa. Tian Chanzi and the others were at the entrance of the villa. They sized up this group of people without leaving a trace. The crowd was too far away, so they could not see their faces clearly. However, they could clearly feel the intensity of their anger. It was as if they could burn everything in the world. They looked at each other and discussed countermeasures. Boom! Chapter 1337. Flames burst forth and a loud rumbling sound rang out. The protective barrier trembled. Tian Chanzi and the others cried out in alarm, "They're using a bomb." Such a vicious explosion had occurred in the capital. This group of people were truly brazen and unscrupulous. They came prepared. The authorities definitely won't care. Tian Chanzi hit the nail on the head. The other people's expressions suddenly changed. You're saying that this is a planned operation? Then how do we deal with it? They're just ordinary people. How can they be our opponents? There's nothing to be afraid of. Someone said confidently, not caring at all. Tian Chanzi was the one who made the decision. He said in a deep voice, "Even so, are we really going to kill these ordinary people who don't even have the strength to truss a chicken?" The surroundings immediately quieted down. No one was willing to do that. Those were executioners, demons, not people like them. Tian Chanzi shrugged and said, "Then it's settled. They definitely won't be able to break through the protective barrier. Our worries are groundless." Yi Dingdang suddenly said. "Yes, this was set up by Tang Zheng. It's safe enough. They definitely won't be able to break through." The others agreed and couldn't help but sigh in relief. If they didn't confront these different people directly, then they could avoid bloodshed. The people outside the protective barrier were all fierce and ferocious. Most of them used to be ordinary people. No one would have thought that in the blink of an eye, they would become so crazy and unreasonable. They also saw Enchanting and the others. A stream of obscenities came out of their mouths, making it hard for them to stop. Enchanting and the others frowned when they heard this. However, they forcibly suppressed their anger and didn't rush up to confront them directly. Get out of the way. A shocking roar exploded in everyone's ears like a clap of thunder. The crowd was forcibly separated by a force, and a group of people walked straight in. Yan Qishan and Yan Luyan. Enchanting and the others were shocked. What were they doing here? Before they could ask, insults were thrown at them. Hurry up and leave. What are you doing here? Yan Qishan followed the orders of his father, Yan Patian, and brought his son and a pair of elite soldiers to support him. Yan family was powerful, and when they discovered the situation outside the villa, they immediately reported it to Yan Patian. Yan Patian understood the seriousness of the matter. He guessed that Tang Zheng must have left the capital, and there might not be too much power left in the villa. If this group of angry people were allowed to attack, the consequences would be unimaginable. Because of this, he naturally had to send people to stop all of this. Yan Qishan's reprimand did not have any effect. Instead, he drew the anger onto himself. Looking at this group of people with extraordinary auras, one of them shouted, "They must be the accomplices of this group of cultivators. Kill them." As soon as he said this, his anger found an outlet, and he vented it all on the Yan family. The angry crowd rushed toward them like a swarm of bees. Although they were ordinary people, when they were united, they could still unleash a powerful force. Not to mention, there were also people who were fanning the flames and deliberately creating a conspiracy. Yan Qishan did not expect things to turn out like this. He was afraid that Yan Patian did not see the scene, and also made a wrong judgment. He did not expect that the elites he sent out would be at a disadvantage in front of ordinary people. Once there were more people, although the martial strength of these Yan family members was not low, they could not bear to harm ordinary people. This gave the crazy crowd a chance to grab hold of their weakness and attack them with everything they had. Bang! The sound of a gunshot rang out abruptly and ear-piercing, and a Yan family member fell to the ground. They have guns. Yan Qishan exclaimed. Be careful. Yan Qishan was both shocked and angry. Towards ordinary people, he felt pity for them. Originally, he only wanted to disperse them, but someone actually shot him in the back, which touched his bottom line. Yan family members watched as their companions sacrificed themselves, and all of them became furious. Stop them and find the murderer. Yan Qishan roared. Bang! Another gunshot rang out. The bullet shot straight towards Yan Qishan. However, he had a lot of battle experience and was strong, so this bullet did not take his life. He narrowly avoided it, and his gaze immediately locked onto a person in the crowd. He pointed at him and shouted, "Catch him for me." Whiz! A few Yan family members soared into the air, like a rock spreading its wings, and landed beside that person, trying to grab him. However, the people around them were not to be trifled with. They immediately reacted and stopped them. The two sides immediately clashed. The Yan family was already furious, so they did not show any mercy. A few people were knocked down to the ground, and although their lives were not in danger, their actions completely infuriated the crowd. They were like crazed wild beasts, attacking the Yan family members. The difference in numbers between the two sides was huge, and they were completely entangled. Enchanting and the others saw this and shouted, "The Yan family members are here to help us. We can't turn a blind eye to them getting hurt." Therefore, a group of people immediately rushed out of the protective shield and fought with these people. The area was in a mess. Tang Zheng did not know the situation at home. He had already seen the 5th sun rise, and there were 4 more to the 9th sun. The Yellow Emperor's former subordinates were about to succeed. Sky Mountain finally came into view, and he immediately flew towards the mountain peak. From afar, he saw the battle on the mountainside. On one side were the people he had left behind, and on the other side were the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. Tang Zheng's people did not wait for their deaths. They directly charged towards the mountain peak and broke through the camouflage of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. However, they were intercepted by the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates halfway up the mountain. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, and neither side retreated. The pure white snow on Sky Mountain had begun to melt. After the ice had melted for 10,000 years, it was like a mountain stream flowing down from the mountain peak. The sound of flowing water could be heard continuously. Finally, it gathered into a surging stream, washing away everything it passed. Sky Mountain seemed to have shed its outer layer, revealing its skin, hard rock. The stream did not completely flow to the foot of the mountain. A portion of it turned into steam and rose into the sky. The sky became dark, and dark clouds covered the sky. However, they were still unable to completely block out the dazzling light. Whoosh! The somersault cloud was extremely fast, and it flew to the mountain peak. Looking down, the Yellow Emperor's troops were still covered by the camouflage. Even though they were in mid-air, they could not see their figures. However, Tang Zheng knew that this group of people was hiding on the mountain peak. He had to rush down and completely destroy the camouflage before he could see them. Without any hesitation, he ordered the somersault cloud to dive down like a fighter jet. The air was filled with a sharp piercing sound. The Empyrean Fairy, Li Xiaotian, the Thundercloud Beast, and the Scarlet Lunar Beast were all on full alert. They stared at the mountain peak with burning eyes. Whoosh! A beam of light from a Dharma treasure rose from the mountain peak and attacked the somersault cloud directly. Dodge! Tang Zheng shouted. The somersault cloud nimbly dodged the attack and landed steadily on the mountain peak. Whoosh! 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 One attack after another seemed to appear out of thin air, attacking them from all directions. The Empyrean Fairy frowned and shouted, "Break!" A wave of energy shot out from her body in all directions like a shock wave. In the blink of an eye, the scene around them changed drastically. The camouflage disappeared. The Yellow Emperor's former subordinates were all exposed in front of them. Everyone was casting their techniques. A portion of them attacked them while a portion of them used a secret technique to condense the Golden Crow's soul. Mo Xia and Yi Meiyu were among them. Tang Zheng waved his hand and used the sky-swallowing technique. A huge black hole sucked in the attacks from all directions. Then, he shouted, "Mo Xia, stop! Are you trying to destroy this world and destroy humanity?" Mo Xia snorted in disdain. She glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and retorted, "Tang Zheng, you're here to cause trouble again. You're really haunting us." If it wasn't for Tang Zheng stopping them last time, they would have succeeded. They wouldn't have to go through so much trouble this time. You're doing bad things. Naturally, I won't let you off. Tang Zheng said righteously. Who said this is bad? This is the master who revived me. He is your ancestor. Mo Xia said righteously. Ancestor? If we have to sacrifice the lives of countless people to revive the so-called ancestor, then this ancestor is too cruel. How dare you? Mo Xia glared at him, you dare to speak such arrogant words and slander your ancestor. Tang Zheng looked at the Golden Crow's soul that was slowly gathering in the sky from all directions. At this juncture, the sixth Golden Crow's soul had been successfully condensed. The 6 suns hung high in the sky, and the heavenly mountain had already become the hottest place in the world. The rocks gradually turned fiery red, and green smoke rose from them. However, to this group of cultivators, this kind of heat could still be resisted. It was just that everyone's expressions were extremely grim. Tang Zheng ignored Mo Xia's impassioned words, and directly gave Li Xiaotian a look, and said, "Use the shooting sun arrows, shoot down these Golden Crow's soul." Li Xiaotian was already eager to give it a try. After hearing Tang Zheng's words, he immediately took out the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows, opened the bow and pulled the arrow, and aimed it at the soul of the Golden Crow. She silently activated Hou Yi's archery method, and the shooting sun arrow immediately turned into a golden arrow. As if sensing the soul of the golden crow, the shooting sun arrow actually started to tremble. This wasn't fear, but excitement. The shooting sun arrows and the heaven-shocking bow were specially made to shoot down the soul of the golden crow. This was a pair of fated enemies. Meeting again, coupled with Li Xiaotian's use of Hou Yi's archery method, triggered a chain reaction. Li Xiaotian seemed to have understood something. This time, it was completely different from before, and another feeling flowed from the bottom of his heart. Hou Yi's archery method's golden arrow, shoot! Li Xiaotian shouted, her fingers loosened, and the shooting sun arrow pierced through the sky. The golden arrow covered the resplendent sunlight in the sky, and shot towards a golden crow's soul. No! Mo Xia screamed out in fright. Last time, it was the shooting sun arrows and the heaven-shocking bow that shot down the soul of the golden crow, ruining his plans. This time, they came back again. Could it be that they were going to repeat the same mistake? No. He would never allow that. Chapter 1338. Mo Xia did have a countermeasure. He was not an idiot. Of course, he would not make the same mistake twice. He had already expected that someone would stop him. He could deceive them for a while, but he could not continue to deceive them. Without a doubt, the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow were the greatest threats to the golden crow's soul. He had spent a lot of time and brain cells on how to avoid the attack of this divine weapon. The heavens did not disappoint those who were willing. He finally thought of a way. That was to form a telepathic connection with the golden crow's soul. This way, he could control the golden crow's soul to dodge the sun-shooting arrow and not be treated as a live target. Whiz! The shining sun-shooting arrow arrived in front of the golden crow's soul. In the next second, it seemed as if it was going to shatter the golden crow's soul into pieces and turn into strands of light. The corner of Mo Xia's mouth curled up into a mocking sneer. With a thought, he said to himself, dodge. The soul of the golden crow quickly moved to the left, causing the sun-shooting arrow to miss. Huh! Tang Zheng exclaimed. Last time, he had shot down the soul of the golden crow one by one. At that time, the soul of the golden crow was not so cunning as to be able to dodge the sun-shooting arrow in time. He suddenly stared at Mo Xia, and seeing his unfathomable smile, he came to a realization and shouted, crap, the soul of the golden crow has changed, it's not that easy to attack anymore. Strange, it can actually dodge the attack of the sun-shooting arrow. Empyrean Fairy was also amazed. Ha ha ha, now you know what it means to be unstoppable, right? Your insignificant skills are useless now, it's impossible to threaten the soul of the golden crow. My master will finally be reborn today. Mo Xia laughed maniacally and shouted loudly. The expressions of Tang Zheng and the others became gloomy. Li Xiaotian did not believe it and clenched her teeth. Her confidence in the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow was extraordinary, surpassing everyone else's, so she was not knocked down by a single mistake. She let out a shout, and the shooting sun arrow flashed with a golden light. Then, it made a turn in the air and shot toward another golden crow soul. Whoosh! The shooting sun arrow almost brushed past the soul of the golden crow, but it still missed. Ha ha ha! Mo Xia's laughter was even more complacent and ear-piercing, as if she was mocking them for overestimating themselves. Amidst the laughter, the seventh sun successfully condensed in the sky. It flickered with blazing light, as if adding oil to the fire on the earth. Tang Zheng's body, which was impervious to both heat and cold, also felt a sense of discomfort. A normal person would have difficulty surviving and would be struggling on the line between life and death. He suddenly had an idea and shouted, "Thundercloud beast, move!" Whoosh! The thundercloud beast soared into the sky and transformed back into its original form. Its huge wings were like a dark cloud, covering the sky and blocking the sunlight. If it was an ordinary bird, its feathers would have long been set ablaze. However, the thundercloud beast was no ordinary bird. It flapped its wings fiercely, creating a gale that blew away a large portion of the heat wave. Even the fragments of light from the golden crow's soul were blown away. The eighth sun was about to condense successfully, but it immediately stopped due to this delay, not to mention the ninth sun. Immerse was furious and said, "Thundercloud beast, you bastard, how dare you ruin my plans? Watch my Ganjiang sword." Whoosh! The Ganjiang sword flew up and pierced towards the thundercloud beast. Whoosh whoosh! The thundercloud beast flapped its wings and a gale blew against the Ganjiang sword. However, the Ganjiang sword's trajectory did not deviate at all. Just like before, it fiercely shot towards the thundercloud beast. A bolt of lightning flashed through the thundercloud beast's eyes. Its entire body flickered with crackling lightning. Pa! The lightning landed on the Ganjiang sword. The Ganjiang sword finally tilted, but its attack did not decrease and still shot towards the thundercloud beast. Its huge body was like a living target. No matter how the Ganjiang sword tilted, it could still accurately hit it. The Ganjiang sword was about to hit the thundercloud beast. A trace of panic flashed through the thundercloud beast's eyes. With a flash of lightning, it quickly shrunk. In the blink of an eye, it turned back to the size of a puppy, narrowly dodging this attack. The Ganjiang sword almost brushed past its body. One could even feel the shock brought by the sharp sword chi. "Thundercloud beast, let's see if you still dare to stir up trouble." Immerse laughed. He did not put the thundercloud beast in his eyes at all. The light spots of the golden crow's soul that had been blown away earlier quickly gathered again. The eighth sun seemed to be about to condense successfully. "I definitely can't let him succeed." Tang Jing secretly clenched his teeth. This extreme heat seemed to be able to evaporate all the water in one's body. He did not know what it was like in other places. Cloud summoning rain. Tang Jing secretly shouted and used the dragon god technique. A mysterious power spread out in all directions. The dragon slayer was in a certain corner of this world. Using the dragon god technique at this time was definitely not a good idea. However, the consequences of this extreme heat were unimaginable. If it was allowed to continue developing, this world would really be destroyed. Thus, he abandoned his personal safety and used the cloud summoning rain. The dragon race's divine ability was indeed extraordinary. There were originally black clouds in the sky, which was the water evaporated from the ground. When he used the cloud summoning rain, the clouds immediately became thicker under the effect of the mysterious power. Kacha! A bolt of lightning fell from the clouds, as if it wanted to tear the sky apart. The light of the lightning and the sun reflected each other, and was especially dazzling. Whoosh! Torrential rain fell from the clouds, sprinkling onto the ground and onto everyone. Some of the people with weaker cultivations were immediately drenched. However, for the experts, the rain could not touch their bodies at all. An invisible power blocked the rain. The torrential rain immediately swept away the extreme heat, causing a refreshing feeling to attack one's heart, adding a sense of coolness. The clouds were still rapidly spreading in all directions. Everywhere it passed, the torrential rain swept away a portion of the extreme heat, and immediately suppressed the flames on the ground. It was not enough to cause a huge fire to spread across such a large area. When the Empyrean fairy saw this, she also understood Tang Zheng's good intentions. Without a doubt, the cloud summoning rain could not stop the soul of the golden crow from condensing. It could only prevent the world from being destroyed immediately, reduce the extreme heat, and make people feel better, so that they would not be dried up under the sun. "Don't worry about the cloud summoning rain, I will stop Immerse," the Empyrean fairy said without hesitation. Her figure flashed, and she directly rushed towards Immerse. The clouds spread very quickly. Not long after, with the heavenly mountain as the center, the dark clouds covered a radius of tens of kilometers, hundreds of kilometers, and finally thousands of kilometers, bringing rain to these areas. The people cheered as they looked at the dark clouds. They were on the verge of tears. Many people knelt on the ground, kowtowing to the sky, muttering, "God, you have finally shown mercy, this rain is good." The sun was on one side, and the rain was on the other side. The rain and sunlight mixed together, and this was a sun rain. However, this rain did not fundamentally change the situation, it only alleviated the situation. When the rain fell on the ground, it was quickly evaporated by the sunlight, and returned to the clouds. Even a part of the rain was evaporated before it fell to the ground. The clouds in the sky thickened again, and the water content was even higher. It was precisely because of this that Tang Zheng could rely on his own strength to summon the clouds summoning rain over such a vast land. Otherwise, with his strength, he would not be able to cover such a large area. Tang Zheng was very clear about this point. The so-called advantages and disadvantages, the soul of the golden crow evaporated the water on the ground, and he used this as a precondition to add a suitable fire, and let the ground be covered by the rain and the sun at the same time. This at least slowed down the pace of the world's destruction. Rain, evaporation, and rain again, this was like a cycle that repeated over and over. Tang Zheng, what you are doing is futile, you can't completely change the situation. Mo Xie shouted. Tang Zheng did not say a word, and only silently urged the dragon god technique to summon the clouds summoning rain. As long as he could save some people, then his efforts would be rewarded, and that would be enough. Mo Xie, you are still a so-called ancient powerhouse, but compared to Tang Zheng, your awareness is more than 100,000 miles away. He is saving the masses of humanity, but you want to kill so many people for your own personal gain. You are really too vicious and merciless. The Empyrean fairy sternly accused. Mo Xie turned a deaf ear, and said, "What is personal gain, what is great merit? Can a junior like you say it clearly? You still dare to boast and lecture me so shamelessly, the ignorant are fearless. You are already at the end of your rope, there is no other way, you should just give up this so-called struggle." Give up? I, the Empyrean fairy, do not have such a word in my dictionary. The Empyrean fairy soared into the air and summoned the mountain river map. The Ganjiang sword flashed, and fiercely attacked the mountain river map. The Empyrean fairy was not afraid, and hurriedly urged the mountain river map to fight with Mo Xie's Ganjiang sword. Back and forth, the light of treasures was extraordinary, and the momentum was great. Mo Xie was distracted, and the speed at which the golden crow's soul condensed slowed down. The other old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor were incomparably anxious, but there was nothing they could do. However, there were smart people who immediately attacked Tang Zheng in groups of 3 to 5, and it was also a good thing to get rid of this big problem in their hearts first. Tang Zheng was fully focused on summoning the clouds summoning rain, and had no time to protect himself. However, the Thundercloud Beast and Scarlet Lunar Beast stood in front of him to protect him, and did not allow the enemy to come even half a step closer. A tug of war began. The Thundercloud Beast's lightning attack was very frightening. When the lightning struck the enemy would emit black smoke and fall to the ground. The Scarlet Lunar Beast's tail was very powerful, and when it swept across and hit the enemy would be swept away. The old subordinates of the Yellow Emperor were not ordinary people, and the few people from before were too rash. After losing these few people, the others became cautious. Yi Meiyu stood at the back of the group. She did not rush forward rashly, as that was not her style. She was not a brute who only knew how to charge forward. She quietly moved and did not get close to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had once broken her traceless dream, so she was rather afraid. She had her eyes on the Empyrean fairy. Chapter 1339. While the Empyrean fairy and Mo Xie were in the midst of a fierce battle, Yi Meiyu secretly came to a place not far away. She opened her hands and quietly cast the traceless dream. When she cast the spell, Mo Xie immediately sensed it. After all, he and Yi Meiyu had already cooperated with each other once. This tacit understanding made him immediately excited, but he remained calm and continued to activate the Ganjiang sword, fiercely attacking the Empyrean fairy. In the eyes of the Empyrean fairy, the Ganjiang's sword was ferocious, so she immediately counterattacked. The stately painting swept up a gust of wind, revealing a huge rock that smashed towards the Ganjiang's sword. Clang! With a loud bang, the Ganjiang's sword was smashed right on the spot. The Ganjiang's sword rapidly fell and stabbed into the rock. The Empyrean fairy's eyes flashed with a hint of complacency. She happened to see Tang Zheng being surrounded by the enemy and was in extreme danger. She shouted, "Be careful," and flew in front of Tang Zheng, protecting him and attacking the enemy. She did not notice the change in the eyes of the Tang Zheng behind her, and a strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Tang Zheng raised his hand, and a cold light flashed in his hand, stabbing towards the Empyrean fairy's back. When Mo Xie saw this, he was overjoyed. He and the Empyrean fairy had the same cultivation, both were at the first stage of the Mahayana realm. It could be said that they were on par, and it would not be easy to defeat the other party in a short period of time. Yi Meiyu's little trick happened to make up for this, and could help him end the battle quickly. Seeing the cold light silently stabbing towards the Empyrean fairy, Mo Xie seemed to have seen the dawn of victory. Taking advantage of this gap, he quickly cast a spell to condense the soul of the golden crow. Countless specks of light gathered towards the soul of the 8th golden crow and gradually took shape. The Empyrean fairy did not notice the change behind her at all. The god of death had already descended on her head, but she did not know. Normally, she would definitely have noticed. However, this was the dreamscape created by the Traceless Dream's sacred art. Her focus and reaction speed were greatly reduced. "Fu Yao, be careful of Yi Meiyu's heart's dream, wake up quickly." A weak voice sounded in Empyrean fairy's ears. The voice was very weak, as if it came from a faraway place. She almost missed it. However, it was as if he had been enlightened. The Empyrean fairy quivered as if she had just woken up from a dream. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and charged forward. Yi Meiyu's attack missed. The cold light stopped at the position where the Empyrean fairy was standing. If she had not rushed forward for a distance, the cold light would have pierced through her back. The Empyrean fairy turned her head and happened to see this scene. Her consciousness immediately became clearer, and she kept telling herself that this was all a dream. Traceless Dream had lost its effect. The appearance of Tang Zheng underwent a tremendous change and turned into Yi Meiyu's appearance. The killing intent in the Empyrean fairy's eyes surged as she said, "You still want to use this method to kill me?" Whiz! A ray of cold light flew out from the mountain river map and shot straight towards Yi Meiyu. Yi Meiyu panicked and immediately ran backwards in an attempt to avoid this attack. She was very clear about the difference between her and Yi Meiyu. Furthermore, as long as Traceless Dream lost its effect, her so-called attack would not be of much use. She wanted to dodge, but it was useless. Puff! The cold light pierced through her chest, bringing with it a flower of blood. She fell backwards with a loud bang, her eyes flashing with despair. "Be careful." Mo Xie flew behind her and caught her, preventing her from falling into the bottomless abyss below the heavenly mountain. Mo Xie anxiously tapped on her body a few times. This time, the damage was very severe, passing through her right chest and almost injuring her heart. At the last moment, she dodged in time to avoid the vital point of her heart. "Don't worry, I'll save you." Mo Xie comforted her, circulating her energy to stabilize her injuries. Yi Meiyu's face was pale and her breathing was heavy. In that moment, she felt the threat of death and her heart seemed to have stopped beating. At this moment, she was finally still alive. She was extremely lucky and understood the beauty of being alive. Mo Xie put her down and looked up at the sky. The 8th soul of the golden crow had been condensed. The 8th suns shone in the sky. Although there was a sun rain, it was still extremely hot, almost melting people. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, his heart turned cold. He had worked so hard, but the enemy was still approaching success step by step. Was there really no way to stop it? Empyrean Fairy's heart also darkened. She nodded towards Tang Zheng and said, "Thank you." Just now, if not for Tang Jing noticing the clues in time and reminding her, she would have been killed by Yi Meiyu. Tang Jing bit his lips and said, "The situation is getting more and more dangerous. We have to help Li Xiaotian and successfully shoot down the soul of the Golden Crow." Empyrean Fairy also understood this point and nodded heavily. The soul of the Golden Crow was the key. They were fighting to the death with the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates, and the soul of the Golden Crow was still condensing. "For symbols venerable." Tang Jing called out, and the 4 symbols venerable appeared on the mountain peak with a boom. In this great battle, he was unable to summon the Azura, because the scorching sun above his head was the absolute nemesis of the Azura. The yang qi brought by the few suns was far more powerful than the heavenly furnace array formation. Therefore, if the Azura appeared here, it would be courting death. It would definitely cause irreversible damage. Seeing the appearance of the 4 symbols venerable, Mo Xia was not afraid. Instead, he said jokingly, "Tang Jing, you want to destroy my plan with just this big guy?" Wishful thinking. Today, the 9 souls of the Golden Crow will definitely be condensed successfully, and Master will definitely be revived. Mo Xia was resolute and decisive. Tang Jing's face was ashen as he shouted, "Dream on. Kill." This time, Tang Jing directly abandoned the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates and rushed towards the soul of the Golden Crow, activating the sky-devouring technique. Since the sky-devouring technique could even absorb the savage aura, could it absorb the soul of the Golden Crow? It was impossible for the soul of the Golden Crow to completely disappear. Even if they successfully stopped Mo Xia this time and used the shooting sun arrows to shatter the soul of the Golden Crow, it would still be scattered in every corner of the world. Once the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates found a way to condense it, it would be another catastrophe, and the cycle would repeat. Mo Xia was not annoyed, but Tang Jing would be too. Therefore, he wanted to solve this problem once and for all. The only way he could think of now was to use the sky-devouring technique to absorb the soul of the Golden Crow. However, looking at the soul of the Golden Crow hanging high above his head, he was also anxious. Regardless of whether he succeeded or not, he would try again. Therefore, he activated the sky-devouring technique and rushed towards the soul of the Golden Crow. The 2 black holes in his palms merged into one, turning into a huge black hole. Whoosh whoosh. The air in front of him was completely sucked in, and the surging heat wave could not escape the attraction of the black hole. Seeing that he was about to get close, suddenly, a blazing power poured into his body from the top of his head. HM. Chapter 1340. Discovering the situation of the pure yang energy, Tang Jing was shocked and cried out, "Oh no!" He suddenly realized that these suns shining in the sky would not only affect the Shura but also cause irreversible damage to him. At the same time, this was also fatal to him, especially when he was near the Golden Crow's soul. The yang energy emitted by the Golden Crow's soul was so strong that it would ignite the pure yang energy in his body. The pure yang energy was a fatal danger to him. He originally wanted to use the sky-swallowing technique to absorb the Golden Crow's soul, but now it was difficult to even get close to the Golden Crow's soul, let alone absorb it into the black hole. His expression suddenly sank, and his body also fell down. When the others saw this, they all cried out in alarm. They thought that Tang Jing's attack would definitely explode with great power, but they never thought that it would be stopped halfway before it could be fully displayed. Ha ha ha, Tang Jing, you overestimate yourself. You actually want to get close to the Golden Crow's soul. Others might be able to, but you definitely can't. Mo Xia saw this and laughed wildly. This was a pleasant surprise that exceeded Mo Xia's expectations. However, he immediately understood the reason behind it. Tang Jing had the 9 yang saint body and contained a lot of pure yang energy. Normally, this pure yang energy was balanced by the pure yin energy and reached a state of balance. Once Tang Jing got close to the Golden Crow's soul, this balance would be completely broken and Tang Jing would not be able to control the pure yang energy. The taste of pure yang energy is very wonderful, right? Don't worry, I will let you slowly taste it and witness the arrival of my master. When the others heard this, they immediately understood the reason and the great danger that Tang Zheng was facing. The mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens immediately remembered the time when they were in the life totem. In order to save Tang Zheng, she had no choice but to offer her first kiss. Mouth to mouth, she fed her pure Yin energy to Tang Zheng. That scene caused many ripples in her heart. In the dead of the night, when she recalled this scene, her heart would inexplicably throb. She gritted her teeth and threw away these messy thoughts. She did not rush to catch Tang Zheng. She was afraid that Tang Zheng would lose control and ask her for a kiss again. As the Empyrean fairy, she could not bring herself to do this in front of so many people. However, the other person did not have such concerns. When Li Xiaotian saw Tang Zheng falling from the sky, he subconsciously soared into the air and caught him. Ah! She couldn't help but cry out in surprise because Tang Zheng's body was too hot, like a furnace, making her subconsciously want to let go. But in the end, reason prevailed over her nature. She gritted her teeth and held on tightly to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was unbearably hot. Although he still had reason, when Li Xiaotian hugged him, that cool pure Yin energy entered through every pore of his body. It was as if he had suddenly fallen into a cold lake, refreshing his heart. He felt as if he had found a treasure and hugged her tightly. Li Xiaotian's heart tightened. She had been thinking about Tang Zheng for a long time, and this strong hug had stirred her thoughts. She was very clear about the danger of Tang Zheng's pure yang energy eruption. Now that his pure yang energy had erupted again, it was life-threatening. She also knew how to restrain pure yang energy. After hesitating for a moment, she did not hesitate to send her seductive lips to Tang Zheng's mouth. When their lips touched, an endless stream of pure Yin energy was transmitted over, causing Tang Zheng to be startled. He did not expect Li Xiaotian to be so proactive, to the point of making such a huge sacrifice to save him. The two of them were very close to each other. Their eyes met and they communicated silently. Tang Zheng could see the determination in her eyes. He did not reject her good intentions. She was willing to make such a huge sacrifice to save him. If he rejected her good intentions, he would have let her down. However, this scene shocked everyone, especially Empyrean Fairy, who felt a little strange in her heart. If she did not hesitate, then perhaps the person who kissed Tang Zheng would be her. Thinking of this, her entire body trembled. She took a deep breath and quickly restrained these messy thoughts. Yi Meiyu was heavily injured and her aura was weak. When she saw this scene, she was furious. This damned Tang Zheng had rejected her embrace back then, yet he was still unclear with so many women. This was a great insult to her. It was equivalent to her being defeated by other women. Mo Xia opened his eyes wide. He obviously understood what this meant, and that was that Tang Zheng would not really be detonated by the pure yang energy. Separate the two of them. Mo Xia shouted. So. A few former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor soared into the sky, activating their magic treasure S to attack the two of them in the air. The two of them had no time to care, and could only watch as the magic treasure approached. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, a huge figure descended. The 4 symbols venerable protected the two of them, and the magic treasure S of the others were unable to get close to them. The two of them landed on the ground, but they were still hugging each other tightly. Their lips were even tighter, as if they wanted to fuse into each other's bodies. The restlessness in Tang Zheng's eyes gradually calmed down, and his eyes lit up with a trace of gratitude. Yes, he was very grateful to Li Xiaotian for stepping forward. If not for her, he would not have been able to control the restless pure yang energy. The consequences would have been unimaginable. Li Xiaotian seemed to be drunk, her cheeks flushed red. She had already cultivated the art of charm, and now she was even more charming and alluring. If it was someone else with a weak will, they would have been unable to control themselves after seeing this scene. However, Tang Zheng was not an ordinary person, and his will was unimaginably firm. Therefore, even though the beauty was good, he still let go of her. Their lips parted, and a trace of reluctance lingered in Li Xiaotian's heart. "Thank you," Tang Jing sincerely said. Li Xiaotian's lips curled into a smile, and she pretended to be free and easy as she said, "It was nothing." No one noticed the bitterness in that smile. Tang Jing restrained the pure yang energy and regained his vitality. He stared at the ninth golden crow's soul that was gathering in the sky, his face darkened, and said to Li Xiaotian in an inaudible voice, "We must shoot down the soul of the golden crow, or else, this world will be finished." Li Xiaotian's heart tightened, and she also abandoned her feelings. She knew that Tang Zhang's words were reasonable, and said, "Why don't I give you the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows? Last time, you shot down the soul of the golden crow, so you can definitely do it this time." Tang Jing shook his head slightly, rejecting her suggestion. "No, they can be of greater use in your hands. The situation this time is completely different from last time. Mo Xia can control the soul of the golden crow to dodge, even I can't shoot them down." Li Xiaotian's face froze, and asked worriedly, "Then what should we do?" Tang Zheng was silent. Because of the agitation of the pure yang energy, Tang Zheng had no choice but to stop the clouds and rain. Without rain to reduce the heat, the world seemed to have turned into a furnace, with countless flames jumping up from the ground. The scorching air was sucked into people's lungs. Immediately, their lungs felt as if they were on fire, burning their bodies. Countless people despaired, thinking that they had reached the end of their lives. In fact, even humans had reached the end. Tang Zheng looked at the sky, as if he was silently asking, had humans really reached the end? No. He gave a firm answer in his heart. "Let's aim at the same target. I'll lure it out, and then, you find a chance to shoot it down." Tang Zheng used himself as bait, risking his life. Li Xiaotian immediately denied it. "No, the soul of the golden crow will detonate your pure yang energy again, it's too dangerous. There's no time, this is the only way. If sacrificing myself can shoot down this damned golden crow soul, then I'll accept it." Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and said hatefully. Li Xiaotian stared at him with burning eyes and said, "Is it worth it?" "Yes." Tang Zheng nodded without hesitation, "Because, in this world, there are too many people that I care about." "Am I one of them?" Li Xiaotian hesitated for a moment, but finally asked. Tang Zheng rubbed her hair, smiled slightly, and said with an unquestionable tone, "Of course." After saying this, he rose into the air and flew towards the soul of the golden crow. Li Xiaotian's heart was filled with complex emotions, and silently said, "Thank you," then suppressed all of his emotions, drew his bow, and aimed at the soul of the golden crow. Suddenly, that familiar mysterious feeling attacked her heart again. At first, when she drew the bow and pulled the arrow towards the soul of the golden crow, this feeling appeared in her heart. It was as if the heaven-shocking bow and sun-shooting arrow were different when facing the soul of the golden crow. When he aimed at the soul of the golden crow, this feeling became even stronger. Suddenly, her heart moved, and she suddenly understood. "I understand, these two divine weapons and the soul of the golden crow are old enemies, there is a kind of fate between them. When I aimed at the soul of the golden crow, the divine weapons also sensed it." She hurriedly activated Ho Yi's archery, and the sun-shooting arrow gradually turned golden. The golden light became more and more dazzling. However, this dazzling golden light did not last for long. The light suddenly dimmed, and turned into another color. She was shocked, and stared straight at the sun-shooting arrow. It had turned green, like a new sprout on a tree branch, shining with infinite vitality and vitality. Wooden arrow. Li Xiaotian immediately recognized it as if he had found a treasure. This was another change in Ho Yi's archery. Obviously, this was an additional effect caused by the connection with the soul of the golden crow. Li Xiaotian was wild with joy. He stared at the green wooden arrow. With a thought, the wooden arrow turned into a golden arrow, and then back into a wooden arrow. She could change all of this as she pleased. Everyone's attention was attracted by Tang Zheng and the soul of the golden crow, and no one noticed the change in the sun-shooting arrow. Tang Jing charged towards the soul of the golden crow without caring about his own safety, and used the sky-swallowing technique again. In the eyes of Mo Xia and the mocking eyes of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates, he was like a fool who was seeking death. They had already determined that Tang Jing would definitely not be able to escape a second time, because they had already made the corresponding adjustments. Under Mo Xia's orders, the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates all occupied the area directly below Tang Jing. Once he fell from the sky again, what greeted him would be the fatal attacks of countless treasures. Chapter 1341. Of course, Tang Jing noticed the changes below, but he couldn't care less about it. He could only try his best to go up. However, with his previous experience, he didn't rush forward blindly. Instead, he moved left and right as if he was teasing the golden crow's soul. When Mo Xia saw his actions, she naturally couldn't allow him to continue showing off like this. After all, there were still a large number of people waiting below, waiting to hack him to death. Mo Xia's mind moved, and the golden crow's soul chased after Tang Jing. With 8 golden crow's souls, Tang Jing couldn't split himself and couldn't dodge them all. Mighty Yang Qi fell from the top of his head. If it weren't for his profound skills and ample preparation, his pure yang energy would have been detonated by this Yang Qi. Tang Jing was already forced into a corner by the 8 golden crow's souls. He watched as they closed in, and his pure yang energy seemed like it could explode at any time. Without a doubt, Tang Jing and the golden crow's soul attracted the attention of all the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. These people were complacent, thinking that they were determined to win and that Tang Jing was definitely going to die. Suddenly, Tang Jing glanced at Li Xiaotian and gave her a look. Li Xiaotian had been watching him. When she saw this look, she understood that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Thus, she gently loosened her fingers. Whoosh! The green shooting sun arrow turned into a green light and flew towards the golden crow's soul. Mo Xia was an expert after all. Although most of his attention was focused on Tang Jing, he still noticed the shooting sun arrow at the critical moment. He knew that something was wrong, and his expression suddenly changed. His reaction was very fast. With a thought, the golden crow's soul scattered in all directions, trying to avoid the shooting sun arrow. He succeeded. This green shooting sun arrow missed and didn't hit the golden crow's soul at all. Mo Xia sighed in relief and was about to mock him when suddenly, another green light appeared in front of a golden crow's soul. What's going on? Mo Xia turned pale with fright, but it was already too late to dodge. However, he finally saw clearly what was going on. It turned out that a golden arrow and a wooden arrow were shot out at the same time. However, under the bright sunlight, the wooden arrow was particularly eye-catching and attracted everyone's attention. On the contrary, the traces of the golden arrow were completely covered. Li Xiaotian had fully demonstrated this point. Just as the golden arrow was about to hit one of the golden crow's souls, it finally changed color and turned into an even more powerful wooden arrow. Boom! With a deafening explosion, the soul of the golden crow was struck by the wooden arrow and exploded. It turned into specks of light that scattered in all directions. No! Mo Xia turned pale with fright as she screamed. Her face was ghastly pale to the extreme, and it was even mixed with indescribable rage. He never thought that a weak person like Li Xiaotian would be able to shoot the golden crow's soul right under his nose. This was a great humiliation. Immediately, he also understood that Tang Jing's attack on the golden crow's soul was purposely to attract his attention and give Li Xiaotian an opportunity to attack. Damn it, I was actually played by them. Mo Xia gritted her teeth, and her eyes looked as if they were about to spit out fire. Yay! Li Xiaotian waved her fist, unable to hide her excitement. She had finally succeeded in shooting down a golden crow's soul. To her, this was a great encouragement. Tang Jing also couldn't hide his joy and gave Li Xiaotian an encouraging look. Their eyes met, and Li Xiaotian's heart warmed as a great sense of accomplishment overwhelmed his heart. There were only 7 golden crow's souls left in the sky. You think you can ruin my plan just like this? Wishful thinking. Mo Xia was furious. Just as she finished speaking, the 9th golden crow's soul that was originally condensing gathered together and turned into a sun. Another 8 golden crow's souls hung in the air. When Tang Zheng and the others saw this, their hearts suddenly sank. They had worked hard for half a day, but they didn't think that they would actually succeed. Moreover, at a speed visible to the naked eye, the golden crow's souls that had just exploded slowly rose into the air and gathered together again. I definitely can't let you succeed, Tang Zheng shouted, and rushed toward the golden crow's souls that were slowly condensing. He couldn't deal with a complete golden crow's soul, but he should have a way to deal with these stragglers. This thought flashed through his mind like a bolt of lightning, and he seemed to wake up from a dream. Why was he so stupid that he didn't think of this method? He hurriedly used the sky-swallowing technique, and the huge black hole produced a terrifying suction force. The complete golden crow's soul resisted this suction force, and the scattered light spots were not that powerful and were all sucked in. Whoosh whoosh. The air mixed with the light spots were sucked into the black hole. Everyone saw this scene. Silence reigned. He actually sucked the golden crow's soul into the black hole. The Yellow Emperor's old subordinates all looked as if they had seen a ghost, and their eyes were wide open in disbelief. Even Mo Xia was so shocked that he couldn't speak. How is this possible? How can he suck the golden crow's soul away? How can I gather the 9th golden crow's soul like this? Mo Xia muttered to himself as if he had lost his soul. It was no wonder that he had such a big reaction. This scene was just too shocking, and the consequences were too great. Mo Xia wholeheartedly wanted to gather the 9th golden crow's soul and revive the Yellow Emperor, but now that there was 1 golden crow's soul missing, how could he do it? There was nothing he could do. Despair spread from the bottom of his heart, and anger accompanied it. It was not an exaggeration to say that his mood was overflowing with anger. He stared at Tang Zheng, who was still absorbing the golden crow's soul, and let out a hysterical roar. Tang Zheng, I'm going to kill you. After saying this, he charged towards Tang Zheng with a powerful force. After Tang Zheng discovered the huge effect of the sky-swallowing technique, he immediately activated his skill and continuously absorbed the scattered golden crow's soul. Not long after, the scattered golden crow's soul was completely sucked into the black hole. Immediately, he was overjoyed. As long as there was no 9th golden crow's soul, this world would be able to avoid destruction. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally settled down. Looking at Mo Xia, who was crazily charging towards him, Tang Zheng could not retreat in time. This was because the other 8 golden crow's souls had completely blocked his path of retreat. Kill. His eyes became resolute as he charged towards Mo Xia without a care for his own safety. The Empyrean fairy also caught up. She was very clear about the difference between Tang Zheng and Mo Xia. Tang Zheng was definitely not Mo Xia's opponent. The stately painting shone brightly as it released its strongest attack. The Empyrean fairy also gave it her all. In order to save Tang Zheng, she gave it her all. Li Xiaotian did not help Tang Zheng because she knew that if she rushed up, she would not be able to help at all. She had more important things to do. Compared to other girls, Li Xiaotian's most obvious trait was her rationality. Although she did not recover her memories, she was gradually regaining her rationality. It was precisely because of her rationality that she understood her responsibilities and advantages. She had to shoot down as many golden crow's souls as possible. This was the only thing that could alleviate the current situation. Therefore, she did not hesitate to draw her bow and arrow and aimed at another golden crow's soul. Mo Xia's mind was covered by anger and had no time to care about the golden crow's soul. Therefore, when this sun-shooting arrow, which had concealed its tracks, flew in front of the golden crow's soul, the golden crow's soul was indifferent. Boom! There was another explosion. This time, the golden crow's soul exploded again. There were only 7 suns left in the sky. The explosion made the hearts of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates tremble. Seeing the golden crow's soul scatter into spots of light, they were all grief-stricken. This time, there was no hope of reviving the Yellow Emperor. What should they do? No one knew the answer. Immerse also did not know the answer. The anger in his heart burned even more fiercely, as if it could burn everything. He ignored the stately painting's attack behind him and only had eyes for Tang Zheng. He was determined to kill him. Tang Zheng knew that he was not Immerse's opponent, so he simply used the sky-swallowing technique to absorb the scattered spots of light after the explosion. Just as he finished absorbing the exploding golden crow's soul, Immerse's attack arrived in front of him. In the face of such a violent attack, he could not block it at all. Pooh! His indestructible body only blocked the Ganjiang sword slightly. Then, the Ganjiang sword pierced through his chest like a hot knife through butter. The Ganjiang sword cut through his muscles and pierced through his heart, directly piercing through Qi Yu's heart. Tang Zheng trembled violently and subconsciously put down his hands that were controlling the black hole. However, the black hole did not disappear. Instead, it floated in midair. He could clearly feel the situation in his body. After Qi Yu's heart was pierced, the last remaining bit of Qi Yu's blood flowed out and flowed into his 8 extraordinary meridians. However, this did not stop the terrible injuries. He felt his life force slowly leaving his body. A bitter smile appeared on his face. The chaotic Vajra spell had helped him cultivate to the indestructible body, but what was the use? The difference in cultivation between him and Immerse was like heaven and earth, so even the chaotic Vajra spell was unable to make up for the difference. Moreover, Immerse had used all of his killing moves this time and had completely locked onto him. He had no way of dodging at all. Looking at the furious Immerse who was right in front of him, Tang Zheng moved his lips and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He said weakly, "Immerse, you have failed. If you are unable to condense 9 golden crow souls, you will not be able to revive your master. This world will also avoid destruction. Do you know what you are doing?" Immerse asked hysterically. "Of course I know. I am saving the world, saving the people I care about, my friends, my family, my lover." Tang Zheng's voice became weaker and weaker. He felt as if his body was no longer his own. He had never felt this way before. Was this the feeling of death? I didn't die from the explosion of pure yang energy, but in the end, I died under Immerse's Ganjiang sword. Tang Zheng thought bitterly. He tried his best to open his eyes wide, as if he wanted to see the world again. He wanted to see the people he cared about again. He saw the Empyrean fairy attacking with all her might, saw Li Shaotian pulling the bowstring again, saw the 4 symbols venerable, the Thunder Cloud Beast, and the Scarlet Moon Beast fighting with the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates. Chapter 1342. This sword had pierced through Tang Zheng's body and heart, quickly taking his life away. The wind seemed to have stopped, and so did the sounds of battle. The entire world had become silent. His gaze was resolute. He did not regret any of this. If he was given another chance, he would still do the same thing without hesitation, even if it meant sacrificing himself. The Empyrean maiden saw this scene, Li Shaotian saw this scene, and all the other people and beasts saw this scene. They were all shocked. In the eyes of Empyrean fairy and the others, Tang Zheng was always able to turn danger into safety, as if he would never die. It turned out that it was all just their misconception. Everyone could die. Tang Zheng was no exception. Seeing his life force rapidly draining away, everyone was furious. The Empyrean fairy stopped activating the painting of mountains and rivers of the gods of earth and Vale. Li Shaotian put down his bow and arrow. The 4 symbols venerable, the red lunar beast, and the thundercloud beast rushed toward him at the same time as if they had gone mad. They completely ignored the enemies in front of them. Tang Zheng. Waves of heart-wrenching cries rang out, even more shocking than the claps of thunder from the 9 heavens. Empyrean fairy and Li Shaotian flew to Tang Zheng's side at the same time. Mo Xie did not stop them, and he had already pulled out his Ganjiang sword. Blood spurted out from the wound, and then, like a small stream, the blood flowed out of the wound. Empyrean Fairy was the first to hug her, saying anxiously, "You won't die, you must hold on." Li Xiaotian stood guard at the side, nodding his head like he was pounding garlic. "Yes, you've created so many miracles and experienced so many dangers, yet you're still safe and sound. You definitely won't die." Her voice was already choked with sobs. Obviously, her emotions were fluctuating greatly. "Ha ha ha, he's dead for sure. He's not that lucky to survive my sword strike." Mo Xie saw this scene and said happily. The Empyrean Fairy and Li Xiaotian both turned their heads and glared fiercely at Mo Xie. They wanted nothing more than to stab him with their swords. Mo Xie was not afraid at all. Instead, she raised her head. Her provocation was self-evident. Tang Jing smoothly held their hands. Their delicate jade hands were more delicate than the most precious porcelain in the world, causing one's heart to sway. His heart did not waver. Instead, he forced himself to open his eyes and smiled weakly. "I'm afraid I won't die so easily." "Won't die so easily?" Everyone else was stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Even Mo Xie looked as if she had seen a ghost and shouted, "Impossible." What was his Ganjiang sword? That was a saint artifact with an artifact spirit. That sword had completely pierced through Tang Zheng's heart. If he still hadn't died, then his life force was too tenacious. Tang Zheng was indeed at the end of his rope, but his life force was not completely cut off. Not to mention that his cultivation level had already reached the divine transformation realm, his life force was very tenacious to begin with. Just the chaotic Vajra spell alone had greatly increased his life force. The indestructible body was not called for nothing. Although his body had been pierced through, it would not be easy to take his life. Most importantly, he still had the life-saving treasure, the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill. The 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill had fused with the sap of the Tree of Life. It had the miraculous effect of reviving the dead and regenerating flesh and bones. Right now, his life force was severely depleted, which gave the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill a chance to display its miraculous effects. "You won't die?" Empyrean Fairy and Li Xiaotian looked at him in a daze. They were both surprised and happy. With such serious injuries, they thought that he would definitely die, but they didn't expect him to be so optimistic. "Of course, cough, cough, I won't die." Tang Jing coughed violently, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. This caused everyone's hearts to tighten again. Mo Xie was already sure that Tang Jing still had a way to save his life. Furious, he took out his Ganjiang sword and tried to add another strike. How could the Empyrean Fairy turn a blind eye? She made a prompt decision and brought out the mountain river map to meet Mo Xie. Li Xiaotian supported him and said with concern, "Then hurry up and heal your wounds. Don't talk anymore." Tang Jing didn't dare let his guard down. With a thought, a 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill flew out from Sumeru World. He swallowed it in one gulp and the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill turned into a warm current. A powerful life force quickly flowed through his limbs, bones, and 8 extraordinary meridians. Spring came upon a withered tree, like a long drought met with a sweet rain. Tang Zheng's wounds stopped bleeding and scabbed over at a visible speed. His pale cheeks also regained some color. Within his body, invisible to the naked eye, the torn wound on Chiyu's heart was rapidly healing. Chiyu's blood had already flowed out completely and merged with Tang Zheng's blood. A powerful energy was hidden within. At this moment, the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill awakened this energy. In an instant, Tang Zheng was like a balloon, rapidly expanding and widening his meridians. His 9 main meridians were actually gradually closing in on each other and converging together. Tang Zheng couldn't help but let out a light snort. His eyes were also glowing with vitality. Although he was still very weak, at least his life was no longer in danger. Li Xiaotian was pleasantly surprised. He couldn't help but clench his hand and say, the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Pill is indeed miraculous. Don't just focus on me. Hurry up and take this opportunity to shoot down the Golden Crow's soul. Tang Zheng urged. This was the most important matter at hand. Li Xiaotian also understood this point. He hurriedly gathered his thoughts and stood up with his head held high. He drew his bow and aimed at a Golden Crow's soul. Swoosh! The sun-shooting arrow tore through the air. Boom! With a shocking explosion, another Golden Crow's soul turned into specks of light. There were only 6 Golden Crow's souls left in the sky. The black hole that had been suspended in midair didn't disappear. The scattered specks of light were immediately sucked in by a huge attractive force. At this point, Tang Zheng had absorbed 3 Golden Crow's souls. Everyone's spirit was greatly shaken. Not only did Tang Zheng not die, but he also found a way to restrain the Golden Crow's soul. It could be said that good things came in pairs. The Yellow Emperor's former subordinates were extremely angry. Mo Xia loudly shouted, "Stop them!" Mo Xia already understood that he didn't kill Tang Zheng. This brat's life was really too strong. However, the most important thing right now was to stop them from attacking the Golden Crow's soul. Mo Xia multitasked. When another sun-shooting arrow came, he finally controlled the Golden Crow's soul and dodged the attack. When Li Xiaotian realized that his attack had missed, he couldn't help but feel gloomy. It seemed that his subsequent attacks wouldn't be so easy. As expected, in order to protect the Golden Crow's soul, Mo Xia placed most of his attention on the Golden Crow's soul. He didn't even want to fight the Empyrean Fairy head-on. The two of them had similar cultivation. When one of them chose not to fight head-on and kept retreating, the Empyrean Fairy felt very helpless. The other Yellow Emperor's former subordinates attacked Tang Zheng madly. However, they were stopped by the 4 divine beasts, the Thundercloud Beast, and the Scarlet Lunar Beast. The Yellow Emperor's former subordinates had many people and were powerful. They forced the 4 divine beasts and the others to retreat step by step. However, they were still bitterly holding on, not letting the enemy attack the weakened Tang Zheng. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the sky. This person's speed didn't seem fast, but it was actually extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at the peak of Sky Mountain. Qiyu. He stood in the air, looked at the 6 souls of the Golden Crow in the sky, and then looked at the great battle on the ground. He instantly guessed most of what had happened. Tang Zheng and the others had actually stopped Mo Xia and shot down the 3 souls of the Golden Crow. Without a doubt, this was a great victory, but also a difficult victory. Qiyu was indeed an expert, but it would not be easy for him to shoot down the Golden Crow's soul so quickly. Of course, Qiyu knew that this was definitely the effect of the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows. These 2 divine weapons were the sworn enemies of the Golden Crow's soul. They were the best at restraining the Golden Crow's soul. When he saw Li Xiaotian pulling the bow and arrow, he clicked his tongue in wonder. This time, she was actually so proficient in using the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows. Although he and Tang Zheng were mortal enemies, at this moment, if he wanted to resolve this crisis and stop the plans of the Yellow Emperor's former subordinates, he had to cooperate with Tang Zheng and the others. Otherwise, it would not be easy for him to completely shoot down the soul of the Golden Crow by himself. When he saw Tang Zheng suck the last bit of light from the Golden Crow's soul into the black hole, he immediately understood Tang Zheng's intentions. This way, he could solve the problem of the Golden Crow's soul once and for all. Genius, you actually thought of this method. Although they were enemies, Qiyu still couldn't help but praise them in his heart. Qiyu's gaze turned and fixed on Mo Xia, and said coldly, "Mo Xia, we meet again. Last time, you ambushed me, this time, let's see what kind of waves you can stir up." Last time, Mo Xia was able to ambush Qiyu and even killed the Saint King, causing Qiyu to suffer heavy losses. This time, of course, he would take revenge. Mo Xia had already seen Qiyu quickly flying over, and his heart couldn't help but thump. He was already barely able to deal with Li Xiaotian, but with Qiyu, even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, he definitely wouldn't be a match for them. Hearing Qiyu's words, Immerse already understood the hatred in Qiyu's heart. He repelled the Empyrean fairy with one move and retreated, increasing the distance between him and the Empyrean fairy. It was precisely because of this distraction that one of the Golden Crow's souls temporarily escaped his control and was hit by the shooting sun arrow, turning into countless specks of light. Yay! Li Xiaotian's eyes lit up, and he secretly cheered. Ha ha ha, your Golden Crow's souls are about to all perish and completely disappear from this world. Qiyu laughed heartily. Mo's heart was bleeding, his goal was getting more and more out of reach, causing his fighting spirit to be greatly affected. The black hole once again showed its might, crazily absorbing the Golden Crow's souls, and not long later, all of the Golden Crow's souls were completely sucked into the black hole. Qiyu personally witnessed the entire process, and his heart became more and more shocked. The power of the sky-devouring technique was truly beyond his expectations. The sky-devouring technique is a technique passed down since ancient times, and it has always been regarded as useless. I also thought so at that time, and didn't pay attention to it at all. This is really a huge loss. That brat's sky-devouring technique was an incomplete version found in Langya, which is why it can be completed. How did my witch tribe's divine ability fall into the hands of the dragon tribe's Langya? There must be some secrets that I don't know. Of course, if I can get the completed version of the sky-devouring technique, maybe it can be even more powerful in my hands. Chapter 1343. Tang Jing naturally did not know that Qiyu was actually thinking about the sky-devouring technique. All his attention was focused on the black hole. Although he was still very weak, it did not affect his control of the black hole. The sky-devouring technique had evolved to a very powerful realm. Once the black hole was activated, Tang Jing did not need to worry about maintaining it at all times. Therefore, although the black hole was working, it did not consume much energy and did not need to worry about it. When the 4 souls of the Golden Crow were completely sucked into the black hole, a strange sound appeared in Tang Jing's body. A familiar feeling arose spontaneously. Tang Jing's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling. Last time, he had absorbed the aura of the wilderness so that the world would not become a wilderness. In the end, for some reason, the aura of the wilderness that was sucked into the black hole ran into his body. It seemed that the black hole had the ability to refine energy. When the black hole absorbed an extremely powerful energy, the energy would not disappear into thin air. Instead, it would fuse into his body. After that, he had racked his brains, but he could not figure out why. He subconsciously thought that this was only useful for the aura of the wilderness. Therefore, when he used the sky-devouring technique to absorb the souls of the Golden Crow, he did not think too much about it. But now, he suddenly realized that his idea was too simple. Not only could the sky-devouring technique absorb the aura of the wilderness, but even the scattered souls of the Golden Crow were no exception. It seemed that these souls of the Golden Crow would also fuse into his body. That strange sound seemed to be the switch that opened the curtains to all of this. Boom! Vast and mighty energy appeared out of thin air and appeared in Tang Jing's body. Tang Jing was startled and his expression changed drastically. This energy was indeed very powerful, but this was the soul of the Golden Crow. There was no need to explain how abundant the yang energy contained in it was. Tang Jing's face turned pale. The pure yang energy was immediately detonated. The soul of the Golden Crow was the fuse. It completely detonated Tang Jing's pure yang energy. His facial muscles immediately twisted together. It was extremely terrifying and painful. Ah! He screamed at the top of his lungs, frightening the others. Everyone thought that Tang Jing had already passed the critical period and was safe and sound, but this scream showed that they were too naive. Tang Jing did not survive the danger. On the contrary, the problem he faced was even more serious. Li Xiaotian's attention was immediately drawn over. He turned his head to look at him and wanted to rush back without a care for his own safety. Don't. Tang Jing quickly waved his hand to stop her. Destroy all the Golden Crow souls. Li Xiaotian stopped in her tracks. She had a conflicted expression on her face. She was worried about Tang Jing, but at the same time, she understood that she had a great responsibility. Only the divine weapon in her hand could shoot down the soul of the Golden Crow. Tang Jing suddenly turned his head and stared straight at Qiyu. He said, Qiyu, the remaining souls of the Golden Crow must be destroyed as well. You know what I mean. Qiyu obviously knew what he meant. He nodded lightly. Your pure yang energy has already been activated. Can you still hold on? Tang Jing gritted his teeth and said, this is my problem. You only need to restrain Immerse and let Li Xiaotian successfully shoot down the other souls of the Golden Crow. Qiyu said indifferently, Brat, although you are my enemy, we still have a period of time together. Since you are willing to sacrifice yourself to destroy the souls of the Golden Crow, this point coincides with mine. I have disliked these souls of the Golden Crow since tens of thousands of years ago. They were nurtured by the Yellow Emperor's soul. If we destroy the souls of the Golden Crow, then the Yellow Emperor will never be able to revive. Ha ha ha. Immerse heard this and flew into a rage. He roared, Tang Jing, do you know what you are doing? If Master does not revive, then Qiyu will unify the world. Can you bear this responsibility? Even with the pressure of righteousness, Tang Jing was not overwhelmed. Instead, he stood up resolutely. He resisted the pure yang energy while saying, I don't know so many principles. I only know that the soul of the Golden Crow will destroy this world and cause most people to die. I won't watch this happen, and that's enough. You are short-sighted. Although there will be a certain sacrifice, Master will definitely lead humanity to greater glory. Immerse corrected him righteously. I don't want this kind of glory. Tang Jing's answer was resolute and decisive. He did not hesitate at all. Why are you talking so much nonsense with Immerse? He has already been brainwashed by the Yellow Emperor. He thinks that he is the only wise master in the world and that everyone else is worthless. Qiyu said jokingly. Tang Jing did not say one more thing. He still had the inner demons as a secret weapon. If Qiyu really did go against the flow, then he naturally had the inner demons to deal with him. Moreover, his strength was not static. One day, his cultivation would catch up to Qiyu and even surpass him. At that time, he would not have the chance to jump around even if he wanted to. The harmful effects of the soul of the Golden Crow were obvious, and right now, Tang Jing would naturally choose to solve this problem first. You will regret it. Immerse gnashed his teeth and roared hysterically. Tang Jing quietly replied, I will not regret it. Immerse, you have already said enough nonsense. Now, there is no need for you to say any more. Qiyu mocked as his figure flashed and attacked Immerse. Immerse hurriedly used his Ganjiang sword to meet the enemy. Empyrean Fairy looked deeply at Qiyu and automatically took a few steps back. She had already seen through Qiyu's intentions. Qiyu's cultivation had already far surpassed hers and Immerse's. If he wanted to deal with Immerse, it would not be difficult at all. Empyrean Fairy had expended too much energy in the previous battle. At this time, she needed to conserve her energy and recover her strength. This was to prevent Qiyu from turning his attention to them after dealing with Immerse. Empyrean Fairy was very meticulous and cleverly thought of this point. Qiyu did not mind. In his eyes, he could deal with Immerse even without Empyrean Fairy's help. Empyrean Fairy retreated to Tang Jing's side and a cool wave of pure Yin energy spread through the air toward Tang Jing. Pure Yin energy could be emitted from a person's body, but it was very weak. However, Empyrean Fairy had the 9 Yin Saint body and contained too much pure Yin energy. Therefore, when she approached Tang Jing was like a person who was about to die of thirst and finally saw a clear spring. His eyes lit up and he greedily absorbed the pure Yin energy. Empyrean Fairy also felt the change in the pure Yin energy in her body. She looked at Tang Zheng and understood everything. She was very clear about the danger that Tang Zheng was facing. If she did not help him, she was afraid that he would eventually explode and die. Li Xiaotian took the initiative to kiss her in front of everyone. This kind of feat was too difficult for Empyrean Fairy. Although she had done it before, it was in a deserted place after all. She did not do the same thing. Instead, she held Tang Zheng's hand and the pure Yin energy rushed into Tang Zheng's body like a river. Tang Zheng was shocked and stared at Empyrean Fairy. "Restrain the pure Yang energy and save your life," Empyrean Fairy said expressionlessly. Tang Zheng nodded his head gratefully and hurriedly absorbed the pure Yin energy. Although he was only absorbing the pure Yin energy from her hand, which was not as fast as intimate contact, but after all, the 9 heavenly maiden had the 9 Yin saint body. With enough pure Yin energy, she could help Tang Zheng solve his urgent problem. The pure Yang energy in his heart gradually calmed down, alleviating his pain. Boom! Suddenly, another golden crow soul was hit by the shooting sun arrow and exploded into pieces. Whoosh whoosh! The black hole sucked in many light spots of the golden crow souls. The pure Yang energy that had just calmed down was immediately affected and became restless, as if it was about to break free of control. Empyrean Fairy was shocked and her eyes widened. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. Before the golden crow souls were completely dealt with, the pure Yin energy that he absorbed from Empyrean Fairy was like a drop in the bucket. It could not completely change the situation. The 5 souls of the golden crow were all absorbed by the sky-swallowing skill. This energy was majestically integrated into Tang Zheng's body. He could not help but let out a heart-wrenching scream again. "Tang Zheng, how are you?" Empyrean Fairy asked anxiously. Tang Zheng was tortured by the pure Yang energy and did not have time to answer Empyrean Fairy. The veins on his forehead were bulging and he was sweating profusely. Obviously, the pure Yin energy that he absorbed from Empyrean Fairy was not enough to change the situation. He had to absorb more pure Yin energy to suppress the pure Yang energy. Tang Zheng and Empyrean Fairy understood this very well. Tang Zheng was silent and only gritted his teeth to hold on. However, the situation was getting worse. Empyrean Fairy was also biting her lips and struggling in her heart. She had a way to give Tang Zheng more pure Yin energy, but it required more intimate contact. Under the watchful eyes of everyone and in broad daylight, her thoughts were very nutritious. Furthermore, they were from ancient times. One could imagine how big of a problem this was. However, she could only watch as Tang Zheng was in more and more pain. Especially when another golden crow soul exploded and Tang Zheng absorbed all of the golden crow souls. The pain became even more torturous and almost unbearable. If Li Xiaotian can do it, why can't I? This is a critical moment of life and death. How can I still have such absurd thoughts? Empyrean Fairy silently criticized herself. Finally, she gritted her teeth and hugged Tang Zheng. Her cherry lips immediately moved forward. Smack! Their mouths were tightly pressed together. A refreshing feeling spread from his mouth to his entire body, refreshing his mind. He looked at the Empyrean maiden in shock with what was left of his rationality. She had actually taken the initiative to kiss him in order to save him. This sacrifice was not small. Empyrean Fairy pretended to be calm and looked at Tang Zheng without changing her expression. Instead, she was silently encouraging him. Tang Zheng understood the look in her eyes. Since she had sacrificed so much, he could not let her good intentions down. Therefore, he did not hesitate to absorb the pure Yin energy. The last time, the 9 Heavens maiden saved Tang Zheng was when he was unconscious. This time, their eyes met, and they looked at each other with a clear and fresh gaze. The atmosphere was completely different, causing complicated thoughts to surge in Empyrean Fairy's mind. Tang Zheng was still absorbing the pure Yin energy, but before he could restrain the pure Yang energy, he heard 2 more bangs. 2 more golden crow souls were hit. The spots of light were like a gust of wind that was sucked into the black hole. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.